What's up, Sifters? Welcome to GameFace episode 69. Right here on Sifted. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I know Matt and I did. We do have a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk to you about PlayStation Experience, which is coming next week. We're going to give you a preview of that. We're also going to give you an update on the site.
And we're going to talk about Final Fantasy 15 now that it's out in the wild. And there's something strange afoot at the Game Awards.
Yeah, and last but certainly not least, we're doing our Turkey Awards for Thanksgiving 2016. Let's go! Howdy-ho, Sifters. Here we are, Friday night, Black Friday night, by the way.
Yep.
I feel like we are the only people working in the entire world right now.
Certainly in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's empty.
It is empty
here.
It's the quickest drive I've ever had to our studio, and I think all three of us could probably say the same thing. So here we are on Black Friday. We're going to talk about Black Friday in a bit, but first, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy 15. As you guys all know, or probably know, the game is out in the wild now. Tons of retailers have broken street date, and
on a scale I don't
never
remember
seen a game break street date like this before. And we, living in Los Angeles, are some of the lucky benefactors of being able to play Final Fantasy 15 early. Matt, how far along are you into the game at this point?
I'm about like between 17, 20 hours in there somewhere. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean I'm that far in the story.
Right.
I'm on like chapter 4 in the story.
Okay.
So I've been like doing a lot of the open world stuff, you know, a lot of the hunting missions, side quests, a lot of side quests to do, most of which is just sort of fetch quest stuff. So I know how it's rolling. You know, my guys are like level 26. You know, we're up there.
So 20 hours in, that's a pretty good spot to be able to form at least a solid opinion. The one thing about this game is at a certain point, it turns into a different game.
Yeah, it does the reverse of Final Fantasy 13. I think it's around chapter 9. It becomes a linear game for the rest of the haul.
And we were talking before the show, actually, and we had talked about this, I don't know, about a month ago on the show, about how we were surprised that a game would do that. It would kind of turn into a completely different game, but you have a pretty good hypothesis on why that is, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but a lot of people that I've seen talking about it online seem to think that that's basically where it becomes the game that Versus 13 was. That you basically took the end of Versus 13 and like bolted it on to the end of this open world idea.
It kind of makes sense.
It might make sense. I mean, I don't, you know, who knows what happened in those 11 years of development they've gone through, but like, it would make sense. And you know, there have been some people saying that you see a tonal shift, a kind of a shift in things. Like, so that might be the case. Now, why they tacked this huge open world thing at the front of it, I don't really know, because it's not very good.
Yeah.
like I have so many questions about this game. Like, there's like no element of it that I can just accept and say, oh, they did this because none of it works. Like, I don't.
What do you mean by it works?
I don't think any of it works.
Do you mean it works? It doesn't work together, or it just doesn't work? Period.
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
Like, here's the thing. Like, there's, you know, so it's an open world game, right? But it's like an open world game kind of. It reminds me of Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Okay.
Where it's like this is huge open world, and I hope you like picking up little glowing circles that represent items.
We were just showing that right there, actually.
Yeah. And this is the demo from before, which is non-representative of the game. Like, so far, I've mostly just run around in the desert and the wetlands. That's the thing that I really can't like piece together.
How do you get to this from where you are?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this. I guess maybe this is a flashback. Here's the game opens with what I assume is a flash forward, because all the characters look older. They all look like in their late 20s, kind of. And they're fighting like some guy on a throne who's firing out flame everywhere, and they take cover behind a little like stone wall thing, and everybody's face and limbs like clip through each other's clothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you couldn't like finesse this scene. Like, my first impression to like not look like something out of a PS2 game. And
Matt, I think at a certain point though, they had to just cut their losses.
I guess
because
so,
I mean they have to put it out.
But you gotta front load this shit. Like everybody knows that 20% of your audience is going to finish the game, but everybody's going to play the beginning. So make the beginning as polished as you can. And there's a lot of man, I'm just trying. I don't know if I even have like a structure to all the things to say about this game because look, a lot of this. I guess I'll deal with the mechanical shortcomings of it first.
Let's talk. To me, I've always said I'm a gameplay first guy. So what I'm most interested to hear about is the gameplay, what you're actually doing, because this game is probably going to be 60 hours.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Like maybe more. I mean, 100 hours probably if you're doing everything minimum. Yeah. So if you've played the demo here, you've kind of got a handle on what the gameplay is on a base level, but it's much more group oriented in the final game because you've got your 3 friends with you and but you have no real control over them except when they do their super moves, which miss a lot. Which is weird because they take up a bar that you have to build up anyway. I can't tell if they miss because that's
stats probably.
No, they miss because the enemies aren't in front of them anymore. It's all positional.
Right.
They try to kind of auto aim on whatever enemy you told them to attack, but a lot of times the enemy will do a jump attack or something. They'll no longer be there, and the guy will just do the move anyway
into air,
into nothing.
Oh.
And I can't tell if that's an intentional hazard of the game being a 3D positional real-time system or if it's just broken.
I think that a lot of that would pivot on just how predictable the enemies' animations are.
Not at all.
If you can't predict them, then that's a broken
chaos.
system.
The fighting in this game is chaos.
Really?
You can set it to a wait mode where every time you stop moving the character, it freezes. But I mean, you're fighting 7, 8, 9, 10 wolves or soldiers or whatever it wants. And you don't have time to figure out where everybody is, and you have no control over what the other 3 are doing. So they're attacking what I mean. You can direct them at a target, but once that target falls, they'll switch to whatever.
Is there a time to pause in battle?
No.
You have to do all this on the fly.
I mean, you
have to assign the enemy that they're supposed to attack while everything's happening.
I mean, you can, like I said, you can stop. Pick the mode where you stop moving, and everything freezes, and you can kind of
then you can
decide.
Set everything up.
But there is no real setup. You can just say, everybody attack this thing.
Right.
Or you can activate whatever super move you have, power move you have assigned to each character. And beyond that, everybody's just sort of going. And you hold down the circle button, and he just automatically attacks. And you can do the blade warp thing, where it's weird. If you have a blade warp ability, so you can kind of basically ram guys, and sometimes you can knock them off their feet, gives you an advantage, that kind of thing. And then but that uses MP, and if you run out of magic points, you go into this this sort of disabled state, and so you can do this thing where you blade warp to higher points, and that instantly recovers all your MP.
Well, it's like a grappling hook, right? It kind of works like one.
Sort of, but it's all automated, and then
really,
as soon as you get up there, your MP's full, and you can jump right back down. So it's kind of it feels.
So it's almost a way they're forcing you to use the mechanic.
No, it's more like a Band-Aid on the fact that you burn through MP so fast they didn't want you to have to use items constantly. So they put in this perch ability so you can instantly get it back and keep fighting.
Are there perches everywhere in the game?
I've never had a fight where there wasn't something like
even
that.
Out in the desert.
Oh yeah, you jump on a rock or something.
Okay.
Always. And there's a lot of MMO to it in terms of big open world. Things just wandering around, Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles X is really close to it, except I thought Xenoblade Chronicles X was more interesting because, I don't even know why I thought it was more interesting at this point. Because I burned out on that game eventually, even though I did pick it as one of my favorite games of the year, because I did play it for 50 hours before I got sick of it.
Right.
But it really has that kind of sterile world problem, where it's you're out in this thing, and it looks amazing, and there's weird otherworldly stuff happening in it, but you're just every item in the game is a little glowing orb. There's no sense of place in terms of what you're picking up or what you're looking for.
There's no random encounters, right? Enemies don't just appear out of nowhere.
Oh,
and
yeah,
attack.
they do.
Oh, they do. Even with the open world, enemies wandering
I don't know
around
if it's intentional, but a lot of times they'll just spawn, and I'll be doing something, and it's they're oh, here come the wolves. I'm oh, they weren't here 5 seconds ago, but okay. And then once you start the plot proper, which I'll get into why that's presented the worst in anything I've played in a long time. But you're in conflict with this empire, the Niflheim Empire, because everything has to be stolen from Norse mythology for some reason, and they just have drop ships of soldiers flying around, and you'll be doing something else, and they'll be You know, one of your guys be like soldiers overhead, and they'll just like drop like 20 dudes down, and you have to fight them on. They're always like you know. By the time that happened, I was like level 17,
right?
And all the soldiers are like level 3 to 8, so it was like they're just cannon fodder. But like and you're just fighting the same thing over and over again.
The enemies are repetitive.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Like it does like there's a couple memorable boss fights so far, but like the combat is like functional but boring at this point. And like you know, you have magic. You have to craft all the magic out of like components. Like you draw stuff near campsites. You draw like elemental shit, and like that lets you craft magic. And the magic is limited numbers of use based on how much you craft it.
How flexible is the crafting, though? Can you really just come up with unique spells that maybe somebody else doesn't come up with?
No.
No?
I mean, it's like you have fire, lightning, and ice, and then like you can put one more component in, and like so like whatever item you put in can maybe it'll make a thunder spell into Thundara or Thundara.
Gotcha.
Like, it's all the standard Final Fantasy stuff. You have to figure out which component item like morphs the basic combination of the three elements into whatever you want. So like you have to discover it, but like you could easily just refer to a chart and get everything, I'm sure. So that's kind of the gating of the spell system in this, is you never learn spells, really. You just have to be able to craft them, and to craft them you need certain items. So the limit to the spell stuff is what you craft. Here's the thing, though. At one point, maybe 15, 16 hours into the game, I looked through the trophies, because you can't actually look at the trophies online yet because they don't exist yet.
Right.
You have to look at them locally. So I looked at them locally, and I had almost all the you do thing for the first time. Like a third of them are all do this for the first time.
Right.
And I realized I did not have the one for using magic.
You never used
in
it.
15 hours, I had never used magic.
Really?
Because it's pointless.
It's pointless.
To me, it's pointless. I mean, maybe things become much more elementally dependent later, and you need to use them, which is possible. But the other reason I don't use them is because magic is area effect, and it can damage your allies. So I find it much more efficient to just...
The risk-reward isn't worth it.
I find it much more efficient to beef up my sword and just go in swinging over and over.
Speaking of which, how does that feel, the sword combat in the melee?
Like it's weightless, basically.
That's the way it's looked in a lot of the demos that they've shown so far.
There's visceral is not a word I would apply to this game in any sense ever at all.
I don't know that I would ever apply that to any Final Fantasy game, though. That's not really its style.
But it's like a lot of this game feels like kind of not an apology, but sort of an addressing of that thing they said when the HD era first began, where like we can't make Final Fantasies the way we used to because we can't make cities anymore.
Right.
It's too expensive and all the assets and da. Well, clearly this game is in some way as a rebuttal of that excuse they made years ago, because like the world's huge. Huge. And like the first huge. And there's a lot of but the first like major.
It's very bigly.
It's not a city, but it's like a settle. It's a mid-sized city, I guess. It's big. There's alleyways everywhere. You can go find little shops. Or I mean, it's like it's.
But
a
is
real
it worth
city.
Is it worth exploring? You said there's shops
No,
and stuff.
It's not. I mean, you'll find little items in corners that you'll never use. There's the main reason I was exploring is because item shops sell soundtracks from the other Final Fantasy games you can play in the car.
Okay.
And so I was looking for those, basically. Other than that, I don't think I bought anything except fishing lures. There's a lot of fishing. It's his favorite thing is fishing. Noctis, the main character. And let me tell you, man, I think you're supposed to like these characters. Game doesn't try to make you like you. Here's one of the weirdest things about this game.
Then why do you think you're supposed to like them if the game doesn't?
Because the way the dialogue is presented, it's clearly you're supposed to think be like, oh, this is like a bro road trip, and we're like all wacky.
A bro trip.
We're on a bro trip, road trip. But Noctis is like the most he's an asshole, and not even like an asshole in the way he's an asshole the way Squall was, where it's like everybody's trying to interact with him, and he's just like, ugh. That's literally astounding. So here's the thing. I don't know if people know about the cross media stuff in this game, but there was an anime series that was released on YouTube and in partnership with Crunchyroll, I think, called Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And then there's Kingsglaive, the CG movie, which tells the story.
Which is a prequel.
Kind of a prequel
to the
thing.
Story of the game.
But also kind of the big ending of Kingsglaive happens concurrently with the first 5 quests of this game. But you're never introduced to these characters. Like the first thing in the game is they're all standing in front of the king, Noctis' father, and he's like, all right, you got to go to this other city and marry this chick. And he's like, oh, sure, okay, whatever. You know, like Noctis is like, oh, whatever, fine. And like,
he's gonna get married.
He's gonna go get married. And the others are like, oh, yeah, blah, you know, doing that same thing like in World of Final Fantasy, where everybody's like doing that kind of that weird like Japanese live action comedy relief thing, like, yeah, like that
just
thing.
Over exaggerated.
And it's just like that weird over exaggerated acting style. It's like, dude, you need to sell 10 million copies of this. This is not the way to go about. You know, I understand that it's like the culturally like appropriate thing, a way of presenting that kind of content, but it doesn't work once you leave the island.
Right.
You know, like it needs to be a little more universal, I think. And the English voice actors are trying their best, and they do much better than World of Final Fantasy does. But it's still weird and awkward. But so you leave, and on the way out of the castle, like your father catches up to you again. And the funny thing is, like the shot of the guy on the throne, he's like the standard taciturn JRPG king. And then when he comes out of the castle to catch up to you, he's like got a brace on his leg, and he's like, wait, Noctis. And he tries to kind of have this warm father moment with him,
right.
But Noctis is just like, whatever, you know. Like, he's just like, you know,
he's like this whole crew is kind of like the too cool for school.
No, the others aren't, but he is.
Oh, really?
And like, there's a lot of backstory to these because I started looking it up because the thing is like that's all you get. Then the guys get in the car.
So you have like no idea what the hell's going on.
You have no idea who these people are. There's no introduction to who they are, why they are, what they're doing, why they know each other.
Which is storytelling 101.
Right. And then worse off, so like this was like 7 or 8 hours into my game because I was doing all this side stuff. But if you just power through the story content, it probably happened like 40 minutes. You get to this like beach town where you're supposed to leave on the ferry to go to the city where you're going to marry.
Which is what we've
girl.
seen a bunch of times, right? It's the female mechanic with the huge cleavage and.
Oh no, that's earlier.
Oh.
That's Sid's granddaughter. So that's the first place you run into, which is just absurd. That whole thing is absurd. And I'll get to like why the world is confusing and sad to me in a second. But after you fix the car and do all that, you drive down to this like beach town and like you're supposed to leave, but you don't because they all go to sleep. And then then the events of Kingsglaive occur where there's like, you know, and I only know this because I looked it up. This part of the story in the actual video game is told through a soundless, voiceless montage it's like a trailer basically for Kingsglaive. And you see like a bunch of guys in a meeting that you've never seen before, except the king. And then something happens and everybody betrays each other. And the guy fights the king that you've never seen, and another guy betrays them that you've never seen, and the king gets killed, and you don't even see that, and you're like, what happened? Who was what was that? And then it jumps back.
This is not a spoiler, by the way. This information has been out there.
This is way early.
Yeah.
And like, if you haven't seen Kingsglaive, you have no idea what any of this is. It's like because there's no dialogue, there's no introduction to who anyone is. It's just
does a disc with Kingsglaive come with the game?
No.
So
not unless you buy the deluxe version or higher. So if you just buy the standard edition, you don't get any of that.
Jeez.
And so then it cuts back to they're waking up in their beach, villa, and Ignis comes in and he's got the newspaper as the headline. The king's been assassinated.
There's a newspaper.
There's a newspaper in this world. That's the other thing. Is like you're walking through.
In this world, there's still.
Oh, let me get to the
Dead
world.
Tree Media.
Oh, let me get to the world, my friend. So you've seen, like, even on the Conan, like, Clueless Gamer, like, it starts with, the first actual bit of gameplay is them pushing the car in the desert.
Not exactly an exciting way to kick off a video game.
It's supposed to, like, expose them, like, as a character's bonding bros style, but in general, you're just, like, it doesn't even tell you how to move the car. Like, you have to figure out, like, you have to hold, like, R2 and push forward. And also, like, that may have actually shown me I didn't see it, because here's another thing about this game. The HUD is partly off the screen on this game. Like,
what?
Like this? Like it's like half an inch off the screen. Like it cuts off like part of the mini map. And
why is this footage that we have okay then?
Oh, it was fine on the on certain things. I guess I don't know.
Are you sure you just don't have the screen size right?
Absolutely, 100% positive. I checked with other people I know who have the game. It's the same thing.
Wow.
It's the same thing on all my friends who play it.
How do you screw that up?
And here's the thing: it changes.
Oh.
Like I booted it up the second day. And like the mini map before had been kind of off the screen, like a sliver of it was cut off on the side, and now the whole thing was on the screen. It was you couldn't see the side icons would go off the screen.
You think they stealth patched it maybe?
No, because like 20 minutes later it was off the screen again.
Wow.
It moves.
What the?
And I can't figure it out. Like you can turn the HUD off and on, and I screwed with every single scaling option I have on my TV. nothing changes it. It's off, and like you even see it when you look, because every time you camp at night, you look at all the pictures that Prompto took because he's the photographer, and you can pick to save or not save them. And you see the picture in the little like strip, and then you blow it up to full screen. You see it's cut off.
In the photo,
on the
it's
edges.
cut off.
Like,
wow.
the game is not taking like overscan into account or something.
Oh my god!
Like I don't know what's happening there, and maybe that'll get patched for like actual. Really, remember
Probably will.
we're playing this before it's officially out. Although it did have a 7 gig update when
already.
I loaded it up. Yeah, so something is in there. It does also do. I'm playing on the Pro, so it does have a high and a low setting.
Make a big difference?
No, I mean it's slightly better textures and slightly high. I mean, I'm playing on 1080p, so it's basically downsampling at that point.
Right.
But the difference is like on light, it's 60 frames a second, and on high, it's 30.
Right.
And it's kind of choppy on either one of them, so I just kept it to 60 because I don't think it looks good enough on high to justify the frame rate drop.
Yeah.
It was pretty much the same with slightly further out LOD to me. Also, like. Game's kind of ugly in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of weird, and like my girlfriend keeps coming in and
it's an 11-year-old game.
She keeps coming in and being like, "Why does their hair look so terrible?" And I'm like, "What? Everybody, it's JRPG. Everyone's." And she's like, "No, how come everything looks like it's dithered on a Genesis game in front of their faces? Like, and like
Talking about like the self-shadowing on the characters.
Like the hair shaders they're using are awful, and like the high and low don't change that. Like it's just, it looks like it's like on Street Fighter V on PS4 where like. You have these awful self-shadows, and like they're not there on the PC version because the PC version is a higher setting, but there's no PC version of this, so you can't do anything about it. Or like things like the windshield on the car, it doesn't look like looking through any kind of glass I've ever seen. It looks like you're looking through some kind of weird spiky frosted filter, and like it's just stuff like that constantly. And like the landscape is big, but it doesn't particularly look very good. There's a lot of stuff happening like that, and it's not terrible, but like. It's certainly not on the level of like what Final Fantasy 13 was for its time.
Well, once upon a time, Square Enix was,
king.
Just Square, were the kings of getting the most out of PlayStation hardware. Like the PlayStation 2 era, some of those games were the best on the platform.
This feels very much like they took a PlayStation 3 game and put it on the PS4.
Which is what it is.
Which is what it is. Similar to how, I think that's what Last Guardian looks like, too. I mean, it's that kind of thing is just happening here.
Yeah.
And there's not much they could probably do about it, but it's this weird mix of, like, certain things look amazing. The car, when it gets wet, when rain falls on the car, it's like, wow, that could be a photo.
So you can see things that they took the time to update.
Yeah.
And other things where they're just like, screw it.
Well, I don't know if they said screw it to the character's hair, because, that's one of the things you'd really want to have look good.
And Square typically dedicates a lot of resources to the characters.
It just feels like there's only so much they could do with it, and their hair is what they look like. And you run into a guy early on whose, like, hair is sort of hanging down in front of his face, like, kind of, standard anime hair, sort of everybody's got the long spiky hair. I give them credit for the fact that the character, especially Noctis, are constantly futzing with the hair. Like they're constantly, and there's like at one point they're all climbing.
And it's believable looking.
Oh yeah, well no, but like at least they they acknowledge the fact that your hair wouldn't stay that perfect through a whole adventure kind of thing.
Also, most video game characters never touch their hair because
at one point they're climbing up to a lighthouse, and all they're talking about is how the wind is screwing their hair up.
Oh really? So they really are a boy band.
Oh my god, man! And also like there's a lot of like, I think there's a lot of like. Gay subtext happening in places. Maybe they didn't mean it.
Surprise.
But these 4 dudes are just traveling the country, like sleeping in the same tent together, and they're all taking pictures together.
Right.
I don't care. I think it would have been more interesting if they were
They just went for it.
Yeah. Just go for it, and because I think, look, Promptus and Ignis are totally a couple. Even though Prompto keeps talking about how he's going to go back and get with the chick at the gas station.
Right.
But we all know.
The characters are very effeminate. They kind of always have been in Final
And there's
Fantasy.
like little, when at one, sometimes like Noctis is also bonds with Gladio a lot, and then like when you're fishing because he loves fishing, sometimes Gladio will be like, "You're handier with a rod than you are with a sword," and I'm like, guys, come on, like, are you doing this on purpose? Like, but like I'll tell you, so like it's that kind of thing where like going back to the Kingsglaive thing, it doesn't work there. Like it's. Like you're like, wait, what did I see? And then like everybody's upset, and they're all upset because like they think that Noctis' father got killed, but they like don't believe it, so they decide to go back to make sure to see it for themselves. And I'm like, so if you're not showing me the whole story of this because I mean, really, they're not showing it to you because they want you to buy Kingsglaive.
Right.
But like, if you're not showing it to me in the sense that like, oh, you want us to be in the same boat as the characters and not be sure, so you want to go. Well, why you show me that montage at all? Like, just cut to them waking up and seeing the headline and being like, is this real? Like, we not go back and find, because that's actually more interesting narratively to be in the dark that way and have to go find out. And I mean, otherwise, if you think it's an important thing that we find out that you see this, why don't you just show me the whole scene? Like, and even if it is a long scene, I have to watch these fuckers drive a car for 9 minutes at a time, so it's not like you are valuing my time too much pacing-wise.
So wait a minute. You just talked about the story for 5 or 10 minutes. I don't know what the game is about still.
Right.
So your father, the king, is killed.
Yes.
Is it your job to seek vengeance against those who did it? Or
Sort
is it
of.
your job to ascend to the throne?
Yes, kind of. I mean, so now you're the king, and because it's a video game, you have to go to all of the 12 tombs of the ancient kings and collect their magic weapons, which then because you see...
It's a test of
the Kingsglaive
valor.
thing is like where you see, you've seen it in the trailers and stuff where he like summon, I think that was even in the very early Versus 13 stuff where he could summon all the weapons and throw them at, do all that.
Yeah.
So that's what that is. Like you have to gather all the ancient weapons of the former kings, and like eventually you get 12 of them.
Is that the overarching goal throughout the whole game, or is that something that you do like right at the beginning to become king, and then?
I'm picking them up pretty fast, so I'm thinking that once you get all 12, that's when it goes linear.
Right. That's what it
That,
sounds
then it becomes kind of like, okay, we've done what we need to do according to the prophecy of the king of the whatever. So now let's like go in, and I think that's what happens. I don't, obviously I don't know for sure, but. In terms of narrative structure, if this thing has any at some point, that would be what that is. But it's a very but it's like there's no, and I know that's kind of a hazard of the open world game and then the sprawling RPG, but it's like there's no consistency to how these characters behave. I don't know who Noctis is. I don't know what, the only time he's shown any enthusiasm in this game for anything is fishing. The fishing side quest, he is suddenly comes alive. And he likes dogs and cats. He loves animals. Every time you see a dog, like he's like, "Hey, doggy," what? It's like, where did this guy come from? Like the rest of the time, he's just like, so like. There's another scene where you're like, you meet up with the sister of one of the other guys, and like the other guys go out shopping because that's
of course they
go out shopping. Everybody, come on. And she goes out on a walk with you through the city you're in. And she clearly is interested. I mean, you're supposed to go marry this oracle
other girl.
chick.
So she's the girl that complicates everything.
Sort of, but you have dialogue choices, and I picked all the dialogue choices that were the nicer versions because you can also just be a complete ass to her, like every other Final Fantasy protagonist in the PlayStation era. Or you can be like a human being to her. But even there's still conversations they have during the walk that you can't control, and she'll say stuff like, "It's like, oh, the breeze feels so good off the ocean here in this town," and I'm not kidding. This is his response to that.
Really?
And it's just like, and she doesn't react to it at all. But it's just like his whole response to everything is like,
Really?
It's like the most like disaffected like '90s Hot Topic kid you could imagine. And of course, there's still. I switched them out for the casual outfits because the black outfits they wear are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which it turns out, that's a uniform.
Oh.
Those are their King's Guard uniforms.
Oh, wow.
Everyone wears, like, linen, apparently, to guard the king. I don't know, or, like, leather. And actually, the textures on that is actually really good on all the clothing. But the clothing is very meticulous design. But here's kind of one of the things, like, there's a lot of weird dissonance in the world. I don't understand the world this takes place in.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, like, when is this set? Because sometimes it looks like modern day, because they have modern cars, flying cars.
Yeah, they have Audis and flying cars.
But then other times it looks like it's set in, like, the 1930s or something.
Well, that's so. Like the first area you're in is like a kind of a southern desert area, like almost like scrub desert, California, but everybody's got a southern accent for some reason. And like
they say y'all and
stuff
like that.
Constantly. Yeah, y'all, what's up, y'all?
They got a drawl.
Yeah, absolutely. Like really exaggerated. Like you are clearly in Alabama by way of the Mojave or something here. And like, and I noticed it the first time I went to like one of the settlement areas, and I'm looking around, like there's people, like, so there's like a woman in like an I Love Lucy style dress, like kind of that classic 50s with the collar and everything.
Yeah.
And she's leading around this kid who's dressed like a Cub Scout, and then she's with her husband who's got like a polo shirt and cargo shorts on.
What?
And I'm like, and I'm wearing like this, the fucking
that
boy
crazy
band outfit, and I'm like, what is this?
Where am
why
I?
am I the only one dressed like a clown? Like, what is going on? But then, like, you get to a later city, and like, you get to this later city, and like all the women, all the guys are just like normally. All the women, they're in like halter tops and jean bikini bottoms, and then over that they're wearing like overalls that are also chaps.
What?
So like the whole middle of their torso is just like exposed skin and like cleavage and butt cleavage, and then they're wearing like protective like hip waders over that. But like they're all open so you can see all like the hot parts, right?
Yeah.
And like I spent like 10 minutes staring at their like chap parts to try to figure out what they're made of, because they almost look like beaten copper. Like, and eventually you find out that like in this city, it's like a mining city that produces all the electricity for the area, but only women are allowed to work in the factories. So they're all dressed like that because
That's like the 50s during the war, right?
I guess, but there's like the men are all still there, and there's tourists everywhere. So they're dressed in that because they work in the mines, but I guess they only need to protect their legs.
What?
Like it's so weird. It's like for a long time it was like, why is everyone dressed like a normal American human being except me? And then you get to this city and you're like, oh,
I get it.
Welcome back, Nomura.
So let me ask you this.
But it just goes on and on about like, so like everything feels kind of like this weird, and like there's a chain of diners and like everybody's eating, like there's a huge emphasis on food, super high res images of all the food you eat. And
yeah,
like,
which is really weird.
And
too.
like right after, and it's like, one of your guys, Ignis, who's basically Egon from Ghostbusters with an accent, English accent. He's the cook, so he's constantly coming up with new recipes. And right after...
How does that tie into the game? Does it work into the spells or anything?
No, if you camp somewhere, you eat... He'll prepare a meal, and that gives you... Each meal gives you a different stat boost for a certain amount of time.
Okay, got you.
And so, like, you'll pick up things or find things, and he'll come up with recipes, like, in the middle, in the middle of the game. He'll have it. So this happened right after my father died, right? Like, so
hey, here's a peanut butter
Noctis's
sandwich.
dad dies, and like when we get to the gas station and the cutscene finishes, you pick up this. I picked up some item, and Noctis goes, and Ignis goes, that's it. What's it? I've come up with a new recipe, and it's called like mystery meat sushi or something was what I got. And Noctis, whose dad had,
just died,
goes, all right, can't wait to try it. And I'm just like, what? You could at least not make him be because
right.
Some other character could have a reaction. And like it's just shit like Prompto, who's the Joker, who the one nice scene in the whole game so far has been like a nighttime conversation between Noctis and Prompto, where Prompto admits he feels that he's not really part of the group because he's not like one of the cool kids.
Right.
But like you can basically say like, what are you talking about?
Which
like,
is still some teen angst.
Oh, it's totally teen angst, but the guy who's voicing Prompto, I don't remember, I've never heard of most of the voice actors in this game, but the guy voicing Prompto does a really good job with some impossible dialogue. So I kind of like that scene. But mostly he's the comic relief, and he does stuff like he sings the Final Fantasy victory theme sometimes when you finish the... And I'm like, dude,
when you finish a battle?
When you finish a battle, and it's like... And then, like, one of the other guys will be like, well, you seem like you're having a good time. And I'm just like, well, that's one of us, bro. It's like, don't remind me of better games while I'm playing this stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
And, like, he'll sing, like, the Chocobo theme with lyrics because he loves Chocobos. And, like, I'm like, so does Final Fantasy exist in this world? Because you know all the music. And then at one point he sings We're in the Money, so I guess that song exists in this world. And, like... I can't figure it out. Like it's such a weird mishmash of things, and I don't...
It sounds like what happens when you have one game, and then you pivot, and you have another game.
This game feels like it had like 3 creative directors, and none of them spoke to each other for the last 2 years of the game.
Interesting.
And I'm still playing it. Like I could forgive it a lot of these mechanical problems, and like all the side quests are basically fetch quests. I mean, it's the most brain dead by rote MMO quest design you could imagine, and it never changes.
Well, you don't say never. You haven't finished it yet. But.
Well, after 20 hours of this part of the game, it's the same.
It's been the same.
I mean, I'm sure the side quests will go away once you hit the linear part, but like, it's not like I'm looking forward to really delving into the story on this one because I don't care about any of these guys.
So what happens to change the story arc at all? Are there any twists that you've experienced so far?
No. I mean, like, there's the big twist is all of a sudden, there's the invasion, and all of a sudden there's, like, soldiers everywhere, but, like, nothing really changes, because now it's like, well, we gotta go find all these weapons. We don't really know where they are, so I guess we'll just keep the road trip rolling, because they can't go to the city where they're supposed to marry the girl. You hear on the radio a lot about this, like, updates on the radio about how, like, they don't know where she is, and there's, like, some propaganda thing about it. So you just sort of continue on the road, And, there's no indication, they say, it's like every JRPG, it's like they say that we have to do this like really super in a hurry, but by all means go raise giant chickens for a while.
Right.
And of course the thing is, like, the thing that I think will sink this for most people is the transit time, because you can, like, fast travel for $10, 10 gil.
You have to pay.
a time. I mean, 10 gil is nothing in the game, but it's still, like, it's annoying that you get, but if you want to go somewhere new, if you want to go somewhere that is not a parking spot or like an outpost you've been to, you have to drive there. And you can auto-drive, where Ignis drives it for you, or you can drive yourself. But I think people were looking at this and thinking it was going to drive like an open-world game, and it does not.
So you're just basically driving on a linear path from one place to the
you
next.
hold R2, and it drives...
You don't steer?
No. I mean, you can steer out of the lane, but as soon as you let go of the stick, it'll autocorrect back into the lane.
Right.
And then when you want to turn, you have to hold the turn when you come into the turn, and he will automatically make the turn.
Right.
It's like those old Laserdisc games almost.
Yeah.
And then, it's to the point that you have so little control that there's actually a button to make a U-turn. Because you couldn't do it the way the controls were. So, basically, I always let Ignis drive, because I'm like, otherwise I'm just stuck there holding a button down, and, then you let him drive. I'm like, I've been on drives that took 13 minutes. You're just looking at these guys sitting in the back of the car the whole time, and, they're not talking, so you can play music. You can gather, all the Final Fantasy music and play that in the car, but you're just looking at these guys drive. I turn and play Pokemon. I have another game to play or another video to watch while they're going where they need to go.
That's hilarious.
And then on top of that, so there's a day-night cycle. And at night, these more dangerous monsters called demons come out. And when night falls, Ignis won't drive anymore. They're all terrified of the night. And if you're driving somewhere and night falls, they'll pull over and he'll be like, "We shouldn't do this anymore. It's too dangerous. Let's go to a motel." And you can say no, but you have to take over the driving.
What?
And you can run into these giant monsters you are not high enough level to fight.
So that's why he's telling you should pull it over.
On the road, but here's the thing. If you see that start, because they'll rise up out of the ground, if you see that start to happen, hit U-turn, drive for 30 seconds, hit U-turn again, go back, they're gone. And I'm like, why are you wasting my fucking time?
Wow.
And I see no reason why this mechanic exists in the game in terms of how night works. Because all it does is spawn horrible extra monsters for you to run away from, because the guys spawning in the first area at night are level 30, and I'm not level 30 yet, even 20 hours in.
Right.
So you gotta get away from them, and usually they spawn right where the thing you need to get for the fetch quest is. So everyone's very familiar with this kind of design for every MMO since EverQuest. That's just how it goes. But it's 2016 and stop it.
Yeah.
And I don't see why this is supposed to be understood. So basically, they're trying to force you to camp or to do the overnights. The camping stuff is
What's the point of it, other than eating food to get a stat boost?
That's where you get because you build up experience points by killing things and completing quests. You do not get them applied to the characters until you sleep somewhere.
Oh, interesting.
Until you camp or go to a motel or whatever. If you sleep in a bed, you get a bonus to the experience points. So if you sleep in the motel, the experience gets multiplied 1.5 times. If you sleep in the super expensive hotel, it gets multiplied by twice, 2 times. So you can level up faster if you pay to sleep somewhere nice. But then if you do that, Ignis doesn't cook any food, so you don't get the stat boost.
What? So what happens if you camp out though and don't go to a hotel?
It just becomes morning. You eat something and you get the experience, but you don't get any bonus to the experience.
Gotcha.
You just get what you earned. Bleh.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and that's the thing is there's so much emphasis on the camping thing, and every time you go to a new camping spot, you see them setting up the tent. The very first camping thing, there's this long scene where they set up the tent and
crack some joke,
hang out. They point out all the fancy deck chairs they're going to, and I'm not kidding. There's camping equipment product placement in this game.
Of course. There's product placement all through it.
Everything they have.
The car is product placement.
Oh, car is. But everyone's sitting around with Coleman lanterns and tents and Comfort Master folding chairs and at one point there's a cup.
Do they call out the brand names?
No, but they're right. They hold the lantern with the Coleman logo right.
Oh, really?
At the, stuff like that. Or they'll be conveniently in the foreground with the thing like that. There's a whole scene.
They got to get back to those 11 years of development.
There's a whole scene in one of the first major towns where there's a Cup of Noodles truck there.
Wow.
And they all are oh wow, Cup of Noodles, we gotta buy some Cup of Noodles for the road. And I'm Cup of Noodles exists in this world? what the fuck is this?
Wow.
And and here's the thing, none of it fits what's happening, even narratively. So like the very first camping thing you do is because you're stranded. The car needs to be fixed. You have no money, even though you're a prince. So they have no money. Apparently, credit cards don't exist here, even though smartphones do. And like and at a certain point, you're like, wait a minute, you have a smartphone? Why don't you call your dad the king and have him tell his subjects fix the damn car?
Yeah.
But we work that out, and then like the hot mechanic chick gives you like 1,000 gil so you can stay somewhere. I'm like, you taking handouts from the people?
Yeah,
like,
you're the
kind of
king's
prince
son. You're the prince.
So then you go camp, and like one of the things that happens at the first camp is Prompto comes in with this giant shopping bag full of groceries, and I'm like, where did we get the groceries
Where's
from?
the grocery store?
Like, I thought we had no money, and we didn't spend any of the 1,000 gil I got, so where'd you get? Did you steal that? Like, what's going on? And it's just like these weird, so like, it's like, so they're all their names are like, so like your name is Noctis, and there's Prompto, Ignis, and Gladios, or something like Gladio.
Easy to remember.
Gladiorus, or whatever, can't remember that. And you're like, oh, so people have weird fantasy names? No! One of the first quests you get is to find a guy named Dave! Like, what is going on?
Well, you're part of the Royal Guard, right? That's
but
why.
like,
So let me ask you this, Matt. Is there anything that you really like about it?
Music's great.
Yeah? Is that it?
The music's great. I'll give it that.
I mean, look, you've played it 20 hours already. Why do you keep going if you're not enjoying it?
Because I wanted to make sure I had something to talk about today.
Okay. Wow.
Like, I mean, look, I didn't pick it for my turkey because I'm not done with it.
Yeah.
And I knew we were going to talk about it. I knew we were going to talk about it on this show, so I didn't want to talk about it twice. But it would have been my pick for the turkey if it continues in this manner.
Try to give us another game to compare it to as far as quality level.
Quality level. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X keeps coming up, but I like.
I mean, a lot of people love that game.
But it's like it's got a similar sort of like emptiness to it.
Yeah.
In the sense that like the world has a lot of space, but not a lot of in it.
Right.
And it has a lot of that sort of like, wait, why are you dressed like there's no like coherence to the world building, what little there is, and you feel like it makes you wait through things for no good reason. But although I would say Xenoblade Chronicles X is a little more respectful of your time in a lot of ways, but like, you're not stuck watching nearly as many bad anime cutscenes in Final Fantasy 15, but like it's that sort of thing where it's like it's a Japanese developer trying to do a Western-style game, and they just don't seem to get why they work.
I've talked about this before on the show. Like, they need to hire consultants from the West to consult on these games because I don't know why you're supposed to think watching these guys drive a car for 9 minutes is like, I don't know what that's for. Like, what? Do you think the Final Fantasy fans, and there are a lot of them, are going to be okay with this game, though?
I mean, I guess...
Because, based upon the last couple games that have come out, you sound like you're kind of describing the last few Final Fantasy games.
Sort of, but the fandom...
they really don't make much sense.
As I understand it, didn't particularly like 13 either. And there's a lot of 13 in terms of that sort of like, why are you getting so far away from sort of the roots of what made this fantasy?
Yeah.
And like,
does it feel, other than the nods, the humming the tunes and chocobos...
the little fan service bits?
Other than that, does it feel like a Final Fantasy game?
No.
Wow.
Not to me. I mean, it feels like an MMO that has once heard of Final Fantasy.
Right.
There's recognizable characters and summons, and like the Guardians of the World. The Guardians of the World are all Ifrit and Sheep. All the summons we're familiar with. Yeah. We've seen those things in the trailers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The elements are there, just like every Final Fantasy mixes up the same elements, and they're already talking about crystals because you can't have a Final Fantasy game without crystals.
Right.
But like, if you're a fan of like the classic Final Fantasy stuff, like I am, or if you're a fan, even if you're a fan of the PlayStation 1 era stuff, like I don't see what you're gonna get out of this. Like, it's not the same kind of storytelling. It's not the same kind of, plot-driven sort of epic mythic stuff.
Well, the old Final Fantasies also had a coherent world.
Right.
Where everything in it made sense with everything else, and it all fit together into a puzzle, and sure, there were mysteries here and there that you had to figure out.
And maybe that is true of this, but to get that, you have to watch other media.
Which is insane.
If you don't like the whole, piecemeal me out the DLC stuff that games do these days, I can't see you feeling any better about, buy Kingsglaive sucker. I'm sure it's on YouTube or something, but they clearly want you to buy these these other products to understand what's happening in this game, and I don't think that's
when you
right.
evaluate a game, you're evaluating what's
right
in the game. You're not evaluating like some video you may or may not be able to find somewhere. Like
when I watch, I looked once I was deep enough into this, and I was like, okay, so you're just not really going to give me any information about these characters I'm playing as. So I went back and watched the Brotherhood thing because I hadn't watched that. I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it because who cares? But like I watched enough of it to kind of like get a handle on who some of these characters were. Maybe that's why that Prompto Noctis scene worked on me, because like you find out in the backstory material that he was like a fat kid who wanted to hang out with Noctis and his popular friends, so he lost a ton of weight and reintroduced himself to them the first day of high school, and that's how they became friends.
Gotcha.
And that's why he still feels like he's not part of their group, really, that they just sort of pity him because he knew him before and they weren't friends with him.
They didn't care about him.
But like the scene is basically Noctis saying like, you should have said something earlier. Like we don't care about that kind of but like in the anime thing, it's like this weird thing where it sort of feels like, hey, if you just get skinny, everybody will like you. it's like right.
Teaching those lessons.
Yeah, that's a life lesson for you.
Lessons for you.
Conform, everyone, have fun.
Yeah.
So like I guess like they might be, and like you might, but that's the thing. Is like if I knew that about that character going in, maybe I would understand why he's the clown a little more.
Right.
And maybe there's people that think that the game is sort of making you infer that by having them act the way they do, but I am kind of a big story guy, and I don't think that's there. I think there's going to be fans who like will love everything with a Final Fantasy name on it, that are going to convince themselves they like this, or that are just maybe this is what they want. If this is kind of if this Xenoblade style thing is the way JRPGs work now, because I love Xenoblade 1 and I like Xenoblade Chronicles X to a point.
Yeah.
I wish it had come out earlier last year, so I wouldn't have given it as much praise as I did on our Game of the Year thing last year. Because after about 40, 50 hours, and I mean, you could say like after 40, 50 hours, you got your money's worth on anything.
Yeah.
But like I didn't finish that game because at a certain point it was just like, this is just the same content over and over again. And Final Fantasy 15 is already at that point for me.
Maybe the big shift happens, though. I mean, we'll talk about it again next week.
Right.
Once you've got past that point, and
if
maybe
I've gotten there by then. I mean, this game is long.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to do. I think at this point I've got like 15 side quests in my log. I mean, it's not for lack of content. It's just that the content is this. And of course it does that thing that a lot of Final Fantasies have done, where like, so the first quest is one of the first side quests is to find Dave. And Dave turns out to be this military guy. So like, there's been a war. Kingslave tells the story somewhat of your father and the war that was fought. So one of his things is like, now a lot of the soldiers have become hunters. So you're posing as a hunter, so people don't know you're a prince. And so the hunters go out and kill things, but they get killed a lot too. So Dave wants you to go find dog tags for killed hunters. And constantly, every time you find a new dog tag, he pops up a new place further down the road where you meet him again. He goes, and there's multiple characters that do this. They're all like, there's one woman who's like a researcher, and you have to find different colored frogs for her every single town.
Sounds like an MMO.
And it's just very much an MMO style thing. And
which makes sense when you see the direction that 14 went, and
right. But like,
and you think back, this game was started back when they were starting to transition into that.
But look, for me, the gold standard of Final Fantasy is 6. Which was a story. It was a novel structure. It was, and I don't mean like unusual structure. I mean it was structured like a novel.
Right.
It was a long, epic tale.
I mean, look, there's a reason that
at one point the world ends.
Yeah.
I mean, big stuff happens in that game, and like I realize that it's easier to tell that kind of story in sprites because you don't have to throw the budget into the CG and stuff. But like, a lot of this game feels like you missed the interesting part. Even when you get to this, there's like a crater, because there's always a meteor in Final Fantasy. So there's like a giant meteor crater in the middle of the world. And like, I don't know if Square knows that meteor craters don't look like that. But like, okay, whatever. And everybody's talking, the meteor crater. And it's like, what? Like, I feel like I missed the good part to some degree. Like, where like the world's just sort of there.
To go, so.
And like, but like, there's nothing.
It could get better.
There's nothing pushing. And like, one of our mutual friends who's also playing the game, is a huge Final Fantasy fan. Like, thinks like, this might be his favorite series of all time, and he's been struggling with the recent version. I mean, he played 14, the Reborn 14 for like 300 hours. He's playing this now too, and he hates it.
Well, he sent you a video he watched right before he went on air, showing basically a weird glitch in the game.
Where he got in the car and had Ignis drive, and they take off, and Ignis promptly crashes into a truck.
Right.
Which, by the way, that's a thing, because to repair the car costs a lot of money. So
the real car costs $480,000. If there's the ultimate collector's edition, you can get the freaking car for $500,000.
So, like, basically, I'm saying, like, I mean...
Do you want to keep playing it?
No.
Are you gonna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like I need to see what the linear part is like.
Right.
But if that linear part doesn't get better at its storytelling, like, I ain't going through that.
I'm thinking there's going to be some huge revelation or something that sort of denotes that break away from the open world and sends you down this path.
Well, so far, the game has been actually very communicative about when you hit points of no return. Like, like when you leave the first area,
I wish Pokemon Sun and Moon did that.
Yeah, like they'll leave the first area, they'll be like, you can't come back here for a while if you do this. Like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, sure. So like it's been good in that regard. It's so many disparate elements that don't seem to come together properly.
That's what it sounds like.
And there's little things like. There's little bits. I guess there are little bits. The chocobos are adorable.
Yeah.
There's it's little things that remind me of other Final Fantasy games that I enjoyed.
Right.
I enjoy it when one of the songs from the old Final Fantasies I like comes on the radio, on the car, because like that at least gives me something to go look up for my other game and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was good. Yeah, I had a good time with that. The music's great. I will say. I mean, the music in this game is amazing. Fantastic work. About all I'll give it in that regard. Like,
well, I'll start playing it this week. We're going to talk in a minute, but I'm almost finished with Pokemon Moon. So I'll jump on it and I'll start playing. I'll have a different perspective on the early stuff, and then next week's show you'll be able to give us your rundown on the later games.
And I should, I didn't think this game was going to be particularly good.
Well, how come?
Just because it's been in development so long and the demo was terrible.
A red flag,
And there's just I didn't see any spark to it in terms of like I just didn't see where this was supposed to hook me, and I mean that in the sense of like me personally, not me as in like a human being in general, But I was ready, because I love open world games. I play terrible open world games. I played Mad Max to 100% completion, and that is the repetitive. That's way more.
Technomancer.
That's way more. Yeah,
I finished it.
And Mad Max is way more repetitive than this game.
Yeah,
but at least like. I can drive where I want to drive in it.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, and I am fooled into thinking that I'm having fun at times. And this game gives me way too many opportunities to sit back and be like, "What am I doing? Like, why am I doing this?" And like the answer for the last few days has been so I can talk about it on the show on Friday.
Yeah.
But when I go home tonight, I'm not sure what that answer is going to be anymore.
We have to talk about it.
We have to talk about it next week. At a certain point, we're going to run out of game faces, and I'm going to go back and have this game I don't want anymore.
All right, let's move along to the next topic. I think that'll give you.
I guess my advice right now is buyer beware.
Yeah,
because especially as someone,
a lot of people have to make that decision here.
Someone who's a casual fan of the old school Final Fantasies who thinks that the series has been essentially garbage for the last 20 years minus 12 and 9.
Yeah.
I don't like it. And then my friend who has, we have the argument all the time about he's like, oh, I'll be like, oh, that one sucked, and he's like, no, it was like this, and this was good about it. He will always find the ray of light in these games, and he can't so far on this one.
Is he farther than you right now, or
story-wise, he is further. I don't know if he's played more hours because I'm a side quest person,
right?
But he's definitely further. He's always been about two main story quests ahead of me as we've been playing this kind of parallel and texting back and forth about it.
Gotcha.
So that would be my warning, basically, is you've got like a casual kind of I'm willing to be impressed, but also not really expecting much person, and you've got someone who was like, oh my god, Final Fantasy, got to play a new Final Fantasy, and we both kind of came away from it we're both about 20 hours in, kind of having that what reaction to it. So if you've pre-ordered, you might want to pull back on that and wait and see.
Probably too late.
Well, no, you can still cancel pre-orders.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a few days. Especially if it's online.
There are some people who went all in on this and
if you pre-ordered it on PSN, you're dead. But if you can only pre-order the digital stuff if you're sure.
Yeah.
I pre-ordered digital stuff that I'm sure about.
Which is hard to say.
But I bought a physical copy of this one. Believe you me.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
We'll be back next week to talk about it more. I'll have played it by then. Matt will be really far into the game.
I will try.
Unless you just completely give up.
No, well, I will say this. World of Final Fantasy makes a lot more sense to me now. Because World of Final Fantasy, for all its shortcomings, is a much more traditional Final Fantasy experience, even though it's kind of a Kingdom Hearts-y comic style.
But it's like the most guilty of pandering to fans.
Oh, yeah.
Though, right?
But I understand why they felt the need to have that in the chamber, putting this out alongside it, because this ain't going to scratch your Final Fantasy itch too well in terms of like nostalgia and kind of the way,
And we've waited so long.
Look, I don't even like Final Fantasy VII, but like when I hear the music from it in this game and like
you realize you're saying that a lot of our viewers will say, "Oh, then I don't care about Matt's opinion on Final Fantasy 15."
They can, but they're wrong because Final Fantasy VII is an average game at best. It's just held in high regard because it was the first JRPG a lot of people played, and most of them played it when they were 12.
Yeah.
And the games I played when I was 12, I loved. This is what they say: the golden age of science fiction is when you were 12.
Yeah.
Whatever you played at that age, you're gonna love.
You think is awesome, yeah.
And I played Final Fantasy VI. So, I was older than 12, but like it was the right time too.
But Final Fantasy VI has held up.
Oh yeah.
Through the sands of time, without a doubt.
But like I'm just saying, like when I hear like I've always liked the music in these games, and I actually, as much as I think Final Fantasy
some of the
VII
best in the industry
is tremendously overrated, I do think, and the music in that game is actually terrible, screechy MIDI on the original PlayStation 1 version. Compositionally, I think it's one of their best soundtracks by far. And when I hear it in this game, I want to go back and play that game again just to play something that's traditionally turn-based.
Wow.
Like, and I know it's not fully just the ATB system, but like playing this game makes me crave a Final Fantasy that makes you select a thing out of a menu and press X to attack.
Pokemon.
Yeah, or World of Final Fantasy.
Like that.
So like I've thought of, and I haven't gone back to World of Final Fantasy to kind of get that turn-based hit, mainly because they broke it on the Pro. They have the Pro update patch broke the depth of field, so like everything's blurry now.
Oh god.
The PlayStation Pro is having some issues.
Yeah,
with
I think
patching.
it's across the board. You can't really single out any publisher on this one. It's been a rough launch.
But I can the World of Final Fantasy makes more sense to me now in terms of like, well, if you want like that super kind of retro nostalgia hit from a certain point of view, that's your game versus Final Fantasy 15, which is trying to do all these different new things by way of MMO design that maybe are not going to enthrall you the same way.
All right, we're really moving on this time. Next, we're going to talk about a publisher that I think is doing the right thing and has kind of went out on a limb here and kind of broken from the herd, so to speak, and started looking at DLC differently. So yesterday, Ubisoft's director of digital, basically the person who runs the online side of all their products, came out and said that Ubisoft will have a new policy where all DLC that's a part of the core experience of a game will now be free. And we've kind of seen this happen a little bit lately. We saw it.
Looking forward to see what the definition of the core experience is.
Right, and the one thing that I would say is that as a caveat is that they did not mention whether story DLC is considered essential to that core experience.
I mean, what else? I mean, in terms of what Ubisoft has piecemealed out as DLC, I can't think of anything else because it's probably not swords or outfits.
So what they're talking about is maps and things like that in their multiplayer games. Okay. So Rainbow Six Siege, for instance, it's become this platform. It's not just a game anymore. It's this thing that's going to live and breathe and evolve, and you buy in at first, and then all this content keeps coming in. So all the maps for Rainbow Siege going forward are going to be free. Now, the operators won't be free, like the actual characters that you play as, because
you don't need those to play the game.
Them. Right. So basically what Ubisoft is saying is they're going to charge for all their frivolities, they're going to charge for any cosmetics, things like that, but they're going to stay away from charging you for things that they say, again, base to the experience. And we saw it with Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2, all the maps are going to be free from the get-go. They also haven't said anything about story DLC. I don't know that they would do story DLC.
And if all this DLC hand-wringing was actually important to players, you'd think they would have supported Titanfall 2 because of that.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So, does it matter?
I don't know. I mean, it certainly doesn't seem to have mattered so far for Ubisoft games because they sell through the roof most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, except for Watch Dogs 2, and we'll get to that in a little bit. It's not doing well.
but that also doesn't have maps.
No.
I mean, this is good news for Ghost Recon game coming up.
Wildlands, yeah.
I wonder how it'll affect stuff like Assassin's Creed, because it always bothered me that Assassin's Creed would pre-order this or buy the season pass and get like extra missions and stuff. And I'm like, I don't care if I don't get the sword or the different hood or whatever, but if you're holding back missions from me, it annoys me.
Is a side mission though part of a core experience?
See, that's what I don't think it is.
And see, here's the thing.
I think that's how they're going to wriggle out of that.
Right. The way Ubisoft has worded all this, it's left a lot of wiggle room for it to get out, essentially. Yeah. I mean, right now, really, all it's committed to is maps.
Right.
And you can always go back later on and be like, well, we didn't promise that. It's like...
Which, when you think about it, is more advantageous to them, because then they're not splitting their user base.
Right.
Everybody can play more regularly, and you get them to buy the other stuff.
That's the point. And look, she didn't word it this way, because... That's way too...
not PR.
Right. Yeah. Her PR line was, we want everyone to be able to experience the things together. If they want to pay for the extra, then that's cool. But you're absolutely right. That's really what they're getting at, is that, we want everyone to be able to experience these maps so that everyone loves the game just as much, gets just as much invested into the game, and therefore is willing to spend some more money to set themselves apart from everybody else who's ultimately the same at this point.
Yeah. Well, also because, who are they learning that from right now in that space? Overwatch.
Yeah.
Give it all away for free, and people will throw money at you for those loot boxes.
And see, here's the flip side of it, too, is if you look, this is a tactic that Activision uses with Call of Duty to generate way more revenue. It uses these frivolities, or what Ubisoft would call the base experience, as a way to get marketing dollars out of this generation Sony, last generation Microsoft. Because what it does is it takes these maps and it's like, well, you can get these maps a month early on PlayStation 4. You have to wait a month for them on Xbox. Or sometimes they use maps like Nuketown was a map that they used last year with Call of Duty to try to get people to pre-order. And what happens is it splinters up the community of people who can and can't play certain maps. It's like you're on a server and you've played 5 games in a row with these same group of people. Because what I do a lot of times when I play shooters is I'll play a match. If I feel like I'm evenly matched with those people, I'll stay. If I feel like there's a bunch of ringers in there, I'll play one match, get destroyed, and leave and go find another one. But what happens is when you have these maps that are kind of splintering your audience, sometimes you just get booted out because the map will switch over to Nuketown, which you don't have, and you get kicked out and you have to start over, and you lose that little micro community that you found that you enjoyed playing with right away. But you look at the financial end of it, and I don't see Activision ever willing to bend and change in the way that Ubisoft has, because it generates a lot of revenue from this and gets a lot of free marketing dollars, which ultimately, it's like, look, if you sign this deal with PlayStation and they say, okay, well, if you give us the maps a month early, we'll give you the equivalent of $100 million worth of marketing. When they market that game on PlayStation, it's not just marketing to PlayStation customers. It's just like it's a TV commercial that Xbox One owners see and PC players see. It casts a much wider net. And so I find it hard to believe that Activision would go back on that kind of a deal and not make it a part of its sort of economic ecosystem anymore. And I'm shocked that Ubisoft has done this and didn't figure out what Activision did long ago. I mean, I guess they did marketing deals with Assassin's Creed before.
Yeah.
And it was exclusive missions, right?
PlayStation usually got some exclusive content. They would say on the box
an outfit,
an extra hour of content on PlayStation or whatever. Watch Dogs 2 is going to get all the DLC first on PlayStation 4.
Right.
They do that, but obviously that's not part of the new order yet.
And I'm wondering if it will continue doing these types of deals going forward with this sort of new mandate that they've handed down.
I don't think that mandate
holds any water.
Well, that, and also I don't think that mandate precludes doing that on a platform specific level. Because, look, if I have it on Xbox, I don't really care that the people on PlayStation are playing something earlier than me. I care if someone on my platform... Not really.
I do.
If I chose that platform knowing that was going to happen, whatever, but, basically, like, it would bother me if it was like you get to play this early on the same platform, and like so you had a bunch of people.
I mean, that would bother me too.
There were haves and have-nots on the same platform. I think is more of an issue than across different platforms. It's a sleazy way to kind of like try to direct people to one thing or the other. It doesn't really bother me because I would never make a decision based on that. It's always about performance. It's also handy that like usually that deal is with PlayStation, and usually games run better on PlayStation 4, so I'm going to get the PlayStation 4 version anyway.
And last gen, most of those deals went with Xbox
360, and that was so like it kind of works out just because I don't pay attention to it, but it tends to be on my platform of choice one way or the other, just because it tends to go to the winner so far. But like I guess it sucks if you only have one system and you don't have a choice. But like then again, like I don't know, like so many people intentionally chose.
That's the way it is for a lot of people, though. Most people have one console.
Yeah, but so many people I know chose the Xbox One version of Destiny, even though Destiny got all the content first on PlayStation
and the marketing.
That I'm sure apparently people don't care. A large
but
number
did a
of
lot
people,
of those people have a PlayStation 4 and they chose Xbox One?
Oh yeah,
I'm surprised to hear that.
Because they were so used to playing multiplayer on Xbox Live that they sort of default for a long. I don't think that's so much anymore, but certainly 2 years ago, it was still in the place where I'm like, why did you guys buy this for Xbox?
Well, there was still back 2 years ago. There was still a battle. Like we still didn't know which way this was all going to go.
But it wasn't a battle in terms of performance. The games looked and ran better on PlayStation 4, and everybody knew this. But everybody I knew bought Destiny on Xbox One anyway because. I don't know. It's just where we always play together. And I'm like,
I think at the start of the gen, I think a lot of people were worried. They were afraid to jump to PlayStation for fear that no one else they knew would, and they go to PlayStation and they have no one to play with.
Right. Well, that happened to me for sure. I mean, other than like some very hardcore people that I've been playing with for a long time who buy every system and they we all agreed ahead of time. It's like we're going to get it on this because it's going to run at 1080p or whatever it's supposed to whatever. I realize most people don't care about that. That's not a thing that wins system wars. But like, I'm talking about industry people here who chose the Xbox One version over the PS4 version specifically because they have always played multiplayer stuff on Xbox 360, and they just sort of carried that over. Yeah. And now that's not so much a thing. Like, a lot of those people have now switched over to a PlayStation 4 version of Destiny, and like one of those sales where it was like $9 for like the base game or whatever. Like there's been a lot of migration, but early on. And Destiny was constantly advertised as like on PlayStation, get the stuff on PlayStation first, get the downloadable content on PlayStation first, and like it didn't sway anybody, that I knew.
Yeah.
So I don't know how effective that marketing is.
Matt, do you anticipate any other publishers doing what Ubisoft is doing?
I mean, maybe if Ubisoft makes a ton of money doing it, like I don't.
Do you see any way they'll make more money doing this than they did before?
Maybe I don't know. I don't know what the plan is, and I think this might only apply to stuff like you say has maps.
Yeah,
is that functions as a service. Like I don't know if Watch Dogs 3 is going to apply here. Yeah, like they're not really. That's not really how that game works.
Which is worse though?
They're still going to charge like $40 for a season pass on that one Watch Dogs 2. What the hell?
I know. Which is worse though? Not getting story DLC or not getting maps?
Well, for me, not getting story DLC because I
don't
care about multiplayer.
But forget about not you personally. Just try to look at things from a broader scale. If you're the type of person who enjoys both, which do you think is more valuable?
Well, I would assume maps in the sense that you play them over and over,
right?
And that if everyone doesn't have the same ones, it creates a problem.
Do you think, I wish I had numbers on this, but I wonder if you look at DLC sales, if map packs sell better or if story DLC sells better?
I think if story DLC sold better, we'd see more story DLC. We don't get any of that.
I think you're right.
I'd love to see some story DLC on Battlefield 1, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, they're saying that we may see story DLC for Uncharted 4 at the Game Awards. Ugh. The rumors swirling around. They kind of tied that one up real nice. I don't know where they go.
Well, they make you play as Sam.
I guess, yeah.
Which is like the Poochie of Uncharted.
Right.
I'm just like, I don't care about that character. I think Sam is going to be the star of the series from this point out. So, you're going to put out this DLC to try to sell him as a solo, adventure.
Try to create that bridge between the old protagonist.
Between Nate and going forward if they decide to make another Uncharted starring Sam because they would rather work with Troy Baker.
Right.
And Troy Baker apparently has to be the star of all Naughty Dog games now.
He has to be the star of every game now.
He's very prolific.
He's good.
And
I mean,
there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Same way there's a reason that Nolan North is so prolific, because they're very good at what they do.
But I think they also both have very sort of middle-of-the-road voices that will work with almost any character.
I think Troy is a very versatile. I would never have known that was him doing Joel in The Last of Us. I mean, he admitted to me later that he's like, I'm just doing my dad. His dad's from Texas, and that's basically, he's like, I'm just doing an impression of my dad.
I think a lot of voice actors.
And I'm like, that counts.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah, for sure.
I would never have ID'd. That game, I would never have identified Joel as Troy, and I would never have identified Dave as Nolan North.
Yeah.
They did a good job disguising those.
No, they're great voice actors.
But I just, I don't, Sam, I mean, it's a tangent, but Uncharted 4 never brought me around to liking Sam, and I do not care about playing anything as him. I'm out. I never thought I'd say that about Uncharted.
You won't play the story DLC of
Uncharted? Not if it's Sam. I don't really care.
Wow. Interesting. All right,
I might play it to talk about it here.
Right.
But
you wouldn't otherwise.
I wouldn't play it if I was just like a civilian, I guess
Gotcha.
you'd say.
All right, let's move along. So we talked about Pokemon Sun and Moon last week. I think I was 10 or so hours into the game. I'm 40 plus hours into the game now. I have not finished the game. I think I am literally like at the end. So I've done everything people have talked about that I was going to have to do. I've done it all.
Pokemon games tend to suddenly be twice the size you think they are, though.
I've collected the 2 things that I needed that the game has hinted at will bring the conclusion of the game. So I've pretty much played the holy living hell out of Pokemon Moon. And I just kind of wanted to come back and talk very briefly about my experiences now that I've gotten to the end of the game. And the first thing I will say is that as far as handheld RPGs go, it's really good. I mean, if you're going to have to make a turn-based RPG for handheld, which is pretty much where we're at with the 3DS, there aren't a lot of action RPGs for the handheld for obvious reasons. It's a really, really good turn-based RPG. My problem with the game is that it should have ended 12 hours ago. It's just like you were talking about, how you get to this point where you've done everything and you've explored every avenue of the combat and every nuance of all the systems, and you've
brushed every Pokemon.
Yes. I've tried everything at this point, like a ton of times. Like, I was collecting all these berries for the longest time and never did anything with them, and then I finally used them and realized I shouldn't have bothered. The game, it gets to a point where you're just like, please end. And that is where I've gotten to with this. And look, there's different perspectives on playing handheld games. So there's the perspective of me, which is how I've played this game, which is I've been sitting at home on the couch while watching TV or doing something else and playing the game at the same time. Then there's the person who uses games like this as a travel companion. And if you were to use this game as a travel companion, you wouldn't have to buy another video game for the next 5 years. If you just played it in short patches.
The problem with that with Pokemon is you forget where you are and what you're doing.
It's not that hard in this one, though, because there's a map and a waypoint system.
Okay.
It's a little archaic.
But it's better than because I found my copy of Sapphire when I was in my Pokemon Go phase. I didn't even remember I'd played Sapphire.
Right.
And I found the card. I'm like, oh, I had Pokemon Sapphire. So I plug it in. No idea where.
The old games are really bad about that.
I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of grass, tall grass. I'm like, I don't know where.
What I'm supposed to be doing.
Where
this
am I
game
going?
is better about that because it does give you it gives you a global map where you can see the 4 islands. And then you can zoom in on it. And then there's a little flag to show you where you need to go next. Now, it's not perfect. Sometimes it's hard to find the flag and how you get there. Eventually, you do
still better than nothing.
Right. And eventually, you do get the ability to fast travel via Charizard. And any Poke Center that you've been to before, you can fast travel to it, and the game gets a lot easier from that point on. But I've at about 28 hours, it had given all it had to give. And then it just turns into this grind. I think the other problem, too, is that the game didn't become challenging until my Pokemon hit level 50. And so everything was just a formality. And it plays the same as every Pokemon before it in that regard, in that you get your starter Pokemon, You keep him as the lead in your party, and eventually your starter Pokemon is like 10 levels stronger than any other Pokemon that you're going to come against. And there's EXP share in this one, so even like it used to be like you'd have to rotate guys in and out. So you'd have your starter Pokemon in the front, but then you take him out and take one of the other guys in and build them up really quickly so that you have a well-rounded party. Until I got to level 50 with my Pokemon, my starter Pokemon could just wipe out everything in one hit over and over. And again, that's not different from prior Pokemon games. They've always been that way. And this one's the same way, but it just feels like the story moves so slow, and then when things do happen, because it's taken so long and there's been so many hints about what's going to happen, you know it's going to happen before it does. You're just waiting for it to drop. I don't know. I'm so torn on this game. Like I've played it for 40 plus hours, and I'm like you. I've been sitting there. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep having these same battles with these same Pokemon, using the same attack, the same skills, the same knowledge, the same everything? It's just, I don't know. I feel like I have this recessive gene that just and this has happened to me with other games before, many times over, where I finish and I look at the time that I spent and I feel like a piece of crap. I'm just like, why did I just burn 40 hours? I burned on this game, Matt. That's a full work week. And so, you at a certain point you get in so deep that you're like, I got to go forward now. But then I look back on it and I'm like, why? I just wasted 40 hours of my life. It wasn't a waste, but I look at it like, what else could I have done? Back. Yes, I want them back now is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. It's like I said, it's a perfect, and I'm starting to think about this now too, because all these things are all it's going to come to Switch, and maybe it makes a jump to console and blah blah blah, and of course Switch is portable as well. But I just don't know if this series can stand on its own 2 feet as a console experience, where you are just sitting down and just grinding through the game instead of playing it in bits and pieces. And like I said, it is a lot more palatable to that type of play now, because you do know where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do. If you come back to it, it's not a complete puzzle of like, oh my gosh, like where am I supposed to go now? Like you do know. And so in that way, it's a lot more functional as a handheld game. But, like I said in last week, I was saying, I didn't think a lot of the changes made much of a difference. Now that I'm 40 hours into it, they really don't. Like it is still the same thing. And I guess maybe I'm preaching to people who know this already. Like that's what Pokemon is. Yeah. Like it is just this game where you do the same thing over and over again. And either you kind of enjoy that grindy thing or you don't. But you don't have to grind. Like that's the thing. There are periods in other Pokemon games where I'd be like, oh crap, like the makeup of this team that I'm facing now, I don't have the right lineup of Pokemon in my party to beat it. And I've never gotten to that point. I think I've died twice in the whole game, where I had to be sent back to the Poke Center. And in prior games, I would die way more than that. And, the difficulty gating in this game, just like other ones, it's all about how far away is that Pokemon Center. Because, you can heal with potions and things like that while you're in battle, but, what makes it tough is when they put you in this gauntlet where you have to fight like 10 trainers and then a boss before they take you someplace where you can heal everybody completely. And that gate is in play here as well. So I honestly don't know whether to recommend this game to people. And I know that's a complete and utter failing as a critic.
I feel like if you if you're a Pokemon fan, already.
Yeah, you're right.
It's Pokemon.
That's probably the right tack to take.
If you're talking about a review-proof game, this has got to be one of them. Because shortcomings or not, whatever, like what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Especially if you played Alpha, Omega, or X and Y, because it seems like a very expected offshoot of that kind of style.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I am playing it on the original 3DS. I have not got an XL or any upgrade. I still have my black launch 3DS, and it looks fine most of the time. But anytime you get in a battle where it's you and a partner against another tandem with 2 Pokemon, so there are 4 Pokemon on screen and 4 character models, and it just turns into a slideshow. Literally, it probably goes down to about 8 to 10 frames a second. Ooh. Like, even when you attack a Pokemon and their meter drains, it drains in, like, chunks.
Wow.
Like, it goes, Like, yeah. I think they're counting at this point that most people have the XL. And look, it's a turn-based RPG, so it doesn't affect gameplay in any way. But it is funny that like it appears Nintendo is starting to develop its games, assuming most people have an XL and the slightly faster hardware. But yeah, like I said, turn-based battles, it doesn't mean that much.
Yeah,
so
you can get it for $100 this Black Friday.
yeah, you sure can. But that's the last thing I'm going to say on Pokemon Sun and Moon. My game eval, I think I'll finish it tonight while this show's rendering out. At least I hope so. And then someday over the weekend we'll have the game eval up. But I do feel guilty for spending so much time on this when I could have been working on a bunch of other stuff. I feel like I should have assigned it out to somebody else, but I got so far. I wanted to talk about it on the show last week, and so I dove into it right away. And once I got so far, I'm like, it's pointless for me to give this to somebody else and have them burn this same 3 or 4 days.
Toilet.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I have it, but I haven't opened it.
You have it?
Yeah. I just haven't. I haven't done that to myself yet. This was a week of Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah. It'll scratch the itch, I'll say that much, but maybe it scratches it a little too much to where it breaks the skin a little bit. I think that's a good way to put it. So let's move on. Next we're going to talk about something that could have been. Mm-hmm. So I think we talked about Glixel last week. Yeah, we did. When we talked about the new site that Rolling Stone has created. Mm-hmm. Well, also Vice has launched a brand new gaming website. And they've been kind of doing the same thing Glixel has. They've been putting out kind of big features. And the big feature this week on Vice Gaming, I can't remember what the name of the sort of the subtitle is of their site. That's terrible. But Patrick Klepek wrote a great feature on Sleeping Dogs 2. And as you know, Sleeping Dogs, kind of the middle of the road action adventure. It's like a poor man's like Grand Theft Auto, I guess is the best way to describe it. It did have elements that were different from...
I think it was better than a lot of people expected it to be, especially after the long development hell where it originally was sort of true crime Hong Kong at one point, and then it maybe was a totally different game. It just got rebranded or something. It had a long and convoluted history, and it turned out way more solid than anybody expected it to.
Well, the thing that was unique about it was kind of the combat system. How you could, like, slam people into objects inside and use, like, the environment as part of the combat.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the first open-world games I played where, like, it was, you could get down to kind of the hands and fists, like, combat, and you could go all the way up to, like, kind of macro vehicle, like city size stuff, and it all worked. The microscope could go way small, and it could go way big, and it all hung together, which was sort of a novel thing at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed. I never finished it, but I think I played it 10 or 15 hours.
I did finish it. I did actually finish it. It was good.
I enjoyed my time with it, but ultimately the game did not sell especially well. And so today, I think it was today, maybe yesterday. Days are just bleeding together in the world of Pokemon. But basically they published an article talking about what Sleeping Dogs 2 was going to be. Did you read the article?
No.
Dude.
I didn't even know this existed until you sent the rundown.
Oh, it was going to be insane. It was going to be, like, probably the most ambitious video game I've ever read about. Matt, do you think that would have been a good idea?
Hard to say. Like, I don't, because the other thing is, like, for this, the first game was very ambitious too, and for the most part, it pulled off what it was trying to do.
It did, for the most part.
I dug it, and I wouldn't have minded seeing them try to take another shot at it. It certainly deserved a follow-up more than a lot of other games that do get follow-ups.
I mean, let's be honest. Sleeping Dogs does things with combat that no open-world game still does.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, hand-to-hand combat, and even gunplay in open-world games, tends to have a certain level of jank to it.
Mm-hmm. This felt pretty good.
I mean, the hand-to-hand stuff felt amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you could do crazy stuff. It was, like, gory, and, like, they set up each room to do very specific things. Like, you could press someone's face against, like, a hot plate, and, like, ambitious. And the sequel, the proposed sequel, was going to just be miles and miles beyond that. And I was just reading the feature, and I'm thinking to myself, no wonder you guys closed. I hate to say it, but it's like there's something to be said for studios that know what they're capable of within their talents, their resources, and their budget, and then deliver that product based around those parameters. And those who...
You kind of hit that little... think you can play with the big boys and you're not quite there yet.
I mean, I'm wondering if Square Enix isn't in that position right now with Final Fantasy 15.
I think Final Fantasy 15 is... I think Final Fantasy 15 is fighting for Square Enix's right to remain called a AAA developer.
Square Enix
basically.
Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, their Western studios
Oh,
are
I mean,
great.
like, yeah, Montreal and like the Hitman guys and the Deus Ex, like that stuff. Yeah, Tomb Raider for sure. But in terms of like the Japanese side, like, will they? I mean, if they're going to be a force with any title that isn't a Kingdom Hearts game,
Yeah.
like, and that's basically riding on the Disney thing,
Yeah.
and the fact that if you were 10 when Kingdom Hearts 1 came out, I think you'll be 25 when 3 comes out.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Yeah.
Like there are people who, like, in a reasonable time span, you know, there are people who died before they could see the end of this game.
I know,
like,
yeah.
in terms of like something that could have been out like in like span of 5 years. The drawn outness of this is ridiculous, but it continues to sell because it's Disney.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I don't like Square Japan just does not really have anything that can punch in the weight class of the Tomb Raider level.
I'm wondering if Square Enix was ultimately the reason the studio closed. Because it also was working on this game called Smash and Grab.
Right.
And that game literally like went into beta, and then the day after it went into beta,
Yeah.
the studio closed.
Very weird.
If you're a studio, and you know you're going through some rough times, and like the end could come at any point, do you release the beta like the day before?
No.
Like that shows that they did
They
not
had no
know.
idea. No.
Right. And so I'm wondering if Square Enix looked at Smash and Grab, and then looked at this crazy plan for Sleeping Dogs 2 and was just like, no mas.
Which is kind of ridiculous when you're like, what I'm playing for Final Fantasy, you know, what I'm playing that's called Final Fantasy 15, and I'm like,
Wishes it were Sleeping Dogs.
11 years,
Yeah.
and this is what you came up with,
Yeah.
and you shut down Sleeping Dogs 2?
Yeah.
I think you made the wrong call. Maybe
Well,
maybe
I
you
think, personally, I think Square Enix, if it indeed did shut down the studio, made the right call. Because I think if it had invested that much time and money into Sleeping Dogs 2, I think it would have been a terrible investment.
or it could have been a breakout hit. We'll never know. Smash and Grab is the thing that I didn't understand the point of myself. Like, I feel like, you know, that kind of thing is pretty much covered by Payday.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And, like,
And
why
it didn't
would-
look much better than Payday,
No.
and it came out 5 years after it.
And why bother to try to... But yeah, that's what I don't get is, like, you know, these companies that make these, like, Me Too multiplayer games, especially in the free-to-play space, with the idea, like, what do you think's going to happen?
Especially if it's not
I mean, I have
based
the
on
same-
an existing IP.
Right.
If it's like a new IP, it makes no sense
Like, I
whatsoever.
have the same question about Battleborn. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like, it's like what was your like ideal outcome on that one? Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, but I mean, they started working on that way before Overwatch was ever
Yeah, but
announced.
Overwatch, I don't think even has anything to do with that.
Really?
I don't think even if Overwatch hadn't come out, I don't think Battleborn would have done well.
I think it would have done better.
Maybe better, but I don't think it would have done well. I don't think it would have done
Yeah.
what they needed it to do.
But I mean, there was
And now you can get it for like 3 cents in
Literally,
in
like-
a humble bundle.
like
so,
$5 or whatever.
I mean, it's
that game is going free to play. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. It's bad, but it's like
I mean, there was
Like,
no
did you
prior
think-
game like it, though. There was no MOBA shooter before it to
Yep.
lay down the template to tell you, hey, I should stay away, or...
yeah, well, it's like sometimes, you know, people. It's like I can't remember what I said this about originally. It was some movie related thing, maybe it was a TV related thing, but it was a dumb twist. It was a dumb twist recently, and it was just like, well, people are like, we're trying to excuse it with like, oh, it was the Martha thing in Batman vs Superman. It's like, well, no one had ever done that with the fact that Batman and Superman's moms both have the same name, so that's like a really cool new thing. And I'm like, you think no one thought of that in 80 years? Do you know what happened there? It's like other people did, in fact, think of that idea, and they said, no, that would be stupid, and they didn't do it.
Right.
And it's like, just because it doesn't exist...
First doesn't
mean,
make it good.
Yeah, doesn't mean that it's like, oh, no one's thought of this, and we got to jump in and fill that niche. Other people probably looked at it and be like, no, not worth it. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you know, there's a real problem right now, I think, with publishers, you know, trying to, you know, as you might say, make fetch happen with various genres that are already ruled with an iron fist by a particular game or a particular company. And I just don't, and you know, and you see it in the sense of like Smash and Grab, like clearly that was it had to be a contributor to why they shut that developer down. You know, we lost the developer because of that. And like maybe if you'd stick to stuff that has a future, rather than like trying to do this Me Too stuff.
Well, didn't they do APB? Wasn't that one of its games as well?
I thought that was the ex-Rockstar guys.
There was one other game that they did. It was like a Sleeping Dogs like online only thing.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I looked up their all the games they worked on when they shut them down. And Sleeping Dogs was really the only thing that stood out.
Yeah,
they worked for ports of things a lot, but in terms of original content, like Sleeping Dogs was like their main thing, and everything else I was like, no, I never really played any of that.
I guess the whole point.
Did they work on the relaunch of APB? Was that it?
Maybe.
Like I don't remember who was involved in that game.
The one thing that I just wanted to say, and the reason I brought this whole topic up is because after reading that feature, I knew why they were shut down.
Triad Wars. That's what
Triad Wars, yeah. And I think Triad Wars is the online-only Sleeping Dogs. Yeah. And I just, as soon as I read this feature, I'm like, well, no shit, you got shut down. Like, I could just see them going into a meeting and pitching this to, and Square Enix sitting there and saying, well, we know what you did with Sleeping Dogs, and now you think you're going to do all this? Like, no way. Like, there's it's like in baseball, when you have, like, people who go up and try to swing for a home run. And it's like, no, you're not a home run hitter. You hit doubles. Go up and hit your double. And get the second base, so the home run hitter comes in and like knocks you around. It's a little bit of like knowing your role and knowing what you're good at and maximizing that. And
somewhat, but I get that must be hard to take from a company like Square Enix, where then you look at something like
their
Final
products,
Fantasy 15, and you're like, you can't even make any of these characters feel like a human.
Yeah.
Like for one scene, you can't make any of these people feel like real people. And you're telling us that we can't do what we do.
Yeah.
And
I think that's...
I'll tell you that much. I sure as hell would rather play Sleeping Dogs 2 than what we got from Final Fantasy 15 so far.
Whoa. There you go.
Even without having read the article, I can tell you I'd rather play Sleeping Dogs 2, even if it was an ambitious failure. At least it's an ambitious failure that had some vision.
At least it was ambitious.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, the ambitions of Final Fantasy 15 have nothing to do with Final Fantasy 15. They have everything to do with we have to make another Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Which is not a reason to make anything.
You're right. It's a good point. Let's move along. PlayStation Experience coming up next week, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Sony finally put out basically all the details. Well, not all the details, but most of the details on what's going to happen. I think the biggest thing is 3 unannounced games will be shown off for the first time there. They're doing panels for 3 of them. Although I'm wondering if that's really the case, because if you look at... Did you look at the list of games that Sony put out for this?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
There's a lot of them in there.
Oh my God. It's like literally like 150.
Didn't even need God of War, it turns out.
Well, that says what I was getting at. So if you look at that list, it's like God of War isn't there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm assuming that one of those panels is going to be for God of War.
Unannounced games?
Well, it didn't say unannounced game. It said unannounced panel. Mm. So people are assuming that it's either unannounced games or they just don't want to admit that some games are going to be there, like God of War.
It's weird that you flat out say that God of War is not going to be there, though.
Yeah.
And then have it be there.
Right. Well, they didn't say it's not going to be there.
No.
It's just not in any of the documentation there. That's why I'm assuming it's going to be one of them. By the way, the list of games were all playable. All that list of 100 games were the playable games that are going to be there.
Well, that would make sense if it wasn't on there, because I wouldn't expect God of War to be playable yet.
Yeah, that's why it led me to think, they made me rethink how they kind of use nomenclature to describe the panels. I was like, it says unannounced panel, not game.
Right.
Which made me be like, God of War's not down here. It's probably up there. Any guesses on what the other 2 games might be, man?
I'm hoping one of them will be whatever Sucker Punch has been doing.
Yeah.
And then I would think, is Spider-Man one of the playable games?
It's not listed, no.
I bet that's the other one.
You're probably right. Insomniac Spider-Man. Because you're saying, was it last week's episode, you said it should be coming out in the middle of the year next year?
That's what I would guess. I mean, I know it has nothing to do with the movie. It's a totally separate thing, but they like to synergize these things. So I would guess it would either come out around the time of the movie in July, or it'd come out around the time of the movie being released on Blu-ray in the fall.
Could be Days Gone as well. Could be one of the games.
Yeah, Days Gone might be
a
one
panel
of them.
for.
I mean, that would probably make more sense than a new Sucker Punch game, really. Because that's something that's there, it's known. They probably have new assets, new stuff to show. So yeah, probably God of War, Days Gone, and Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's probably right.
It's not.
That's
as
really
exciting
disappointing.
Now. Yeah. Brought it all down.
Yeah, we did.
But,
We have it all
I
figured
mean, I
out.
really want to see more Spider-Man. The Spider-Man game definitely has my attention.
Yeah, I mean, more. It's like all we've
Yeah.
seen is that trailer, which they said is gameplay cut together or whatever,
Yeah.
but
in-engine.
to see it actually being played.
It's going to be interesting to see. Now we're getting. These are going to be games that have been built with PlayStation Pro in mind, as opposed to poorly patched to work with it on launch day. So I'm interested to see. Get the Pro version of Days Gone from the E3 area was amazing.
It really was. Yeah.
All that stuff looks great. So
Although a lot of people will point out that it's like 3 different zombie models repeated over and over.
yeah. Well, stop looking so closely at the zombies. Kill them.
Yeah. I don't know. I can understand.
Yeah,
people.
but I mean that's true of like Dead Rising or Left 4 Dead.
anything with
Like
hordes
hordes
of
of
anything.
zombies is going to look like that. And like ideally, the game is going to be intense enough that you don't have time to criticize the zombies' shirt color choices. So
Yeah. I'm also assuming should be a huge blowout for The Last Guardian. This happens December 3rd through the 6th, and
the
then
6th is
Last
when
Guardian
it
comes out on the 8th.
Yeah,
So I'm assuming they may have the whole game on the floor there,
yeah, one would hope.
which means a lot of media could be bleeding out of there right before the game launches. So you might want to go on media blackout for that one.
Especially if it's as short as I think it is.
Let's hope not. So here's a handful of games that were in that massive list, because there were literally probably 150 games there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you actually go and look through them, there was only a handful that really kind of caught my eye. And here we go. Ace Combat 7, man. Finally, Ace Combat 7. You were just talking about it, I think, a month ago on the show. You're saying, what the hell happened to Ace Combat 7? You're a big fan of the series. It's going to be there.
Yeah, and that's the game that's going to get my girlfriend to try VR finally.
Oh, that's right.
Because she loves Ace Combat.
I'm petrified of trying this game in VR after my prior experiences getting sick playing VR games.
I'm excited because I find the in-cockpit stuff to be much easier to deal with.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to your brain.
I guess
think.
so. I can see that.
And the first VR thing I ever played was the alpha of Eve Valkyrie that they'd thrown together for E3 a few years ago, and first time I pulled like a really high G turn, basically, my whole brain just went whoa! It just like my whole brain turned over in my head essentially, and a strong Icelandic accent came from the side, like, look at your body, look down at your body, and I looked down at my like virtual body, and everything settled. Everything was like, oh, okay, I get it. Now my brain knows where I am,
Right.
what's happening. But I always remember. I always remember that. Everything just went, I was like, whoa! And all of a sudden, I will always remember that strong Icelandic man who brought me back from the brink.
Horizon Zero Dawn, obviously, a big game for any show, not just a PlayStation-only show.
Their biggest thing for the next 6 months, I would say.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a new demo. The game is kind of rounding the corner now, which is pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we're, 3 months out?
Yeah, that's really exciting to think about. Been a long wait, but not as long as some games. But I'm assuming we'll get a new demo of that at the very least. There should be plenty to show off at this point with the game just a few months away. So hopefully we get a new demo of that. MLB The Show 17 hasn't been shown yet. They put out a trailer for it.
That should look pretty amazing.
That comes out in like 2 months. So we should get another look, or the first look, at Sony's exclusive baseball game. I still can't believe no one else is making MLB games other than like those arcadey things.
I do like the show games.
Yep.
They're the only sports games I play regularly.
So we'll get a look at that. Here's the biggest one, though. Resident Evil 7.
Is it the biggest one?
Well, it should be the game that we learn the most about, other than maybe those 3. But, I mean, dude, do you realize Resident Evil 7 is like a month and a half away from release? That's crazy to think about. Think back to Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 5. How many trailers we had for those games by now? I mean, we're talking dozens of trailers and media and interviews and developer docs and you name it. There was just gobs and gobs of media. You go to the Resident Evil 7 page on Sifted right now and you look at it and it's like basically all opinion shows like GameFace and the podcast from all the other websites and then like 3 more pieces of media. Like there is just nothing for this game and it's so close. Like with the PlayStation VR tie-in, like I just feel like this is going to be its massive blowout for Resident Evil 7 information. That's kind of the game that I've targeted. It has to be.
Maybe. I mean, they're playing this one real close to the vest, like in terms of like what. They're playing up the mystery of what is it and what are they doing with the series and how does it tie into the other games and all that. I wonder how far they're going to push that.
Well, then Capcom said it's only expecting sales of 3 to 4 million worldwide. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you have a promotional plan like this, that's probably all you should expect. But that seems crazy. That's like bottom of the barrel numbers for a Resident Evil game.
Mm-hmm. Starting over.
Yeah, I think this game is going to be a big focal point. I think we'll probably see a stage demo at the press conference. I think there'll be maybe the full game again on the floor where attendees can play it.
I think you're wrong. I think they're going to play this one real quiet. I think they're going to. They're going to know it's there, but they're not going to show much.
Well, if Capcom has to churn out another god-awful quarterly report like it just did, no one's going to wonder why.
Yeah, well, if you're focusing on VR, obviously you don't need VR to play the game. But, there's a VR focus to it, and, you're automatically limiting your sales by doing that.
Yeah.
At this point. There's just not that many headsets out there.
Yeah, but, like you said, you don't have to play it for VR. And I'm guessing probably 80% to 90% of the people who play Resident Evil 7 are not going to play it in VR. They're going to play it just traditionally.
And here's the thing. I don't think it comes off too well outside of VR.
It's a little bit of a tougher sell because you can see that the visuals have been sacrificed a bit for it to run on VR.
And it's not a very compelling way to play the game, I don't think, outside. In VR, you're like, holy shit, you're in there and everything. Something can jump at you at any time, and you're there in the moment, and but you don't have that same kind of intensity when you're playing on a screen.
For a perfect example, I didn't like PT. I wish I still had it on my hard drive just because. But I honestly didn't enjoy playing it.
I liked it, but I don't understand why people freaked out about it.
To me, it was just a dull first-person horror game.
But there are people that will say, that is the greatest thing made in, 3 generations.
No.
And I'm constantly.
Really?
Look on NeoGAF. People think it's the greatest thing ever made sometimes. And I'm like, no,
wow.
It's like a horror permutation of the Stanley Parable. There's not really. It's cool.
Different strokes for different folks. I try to respect everyone else's opinion, but that's a tough one for me to accept.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's different, and it's not what anybody was expecting, and I get that. But I've played through that thing 3 times, and look. The way you even solve that thing is inane.
It's insane.
The whole thing, saying names into the headset and all, and it's just classic Kojima bullshit.
Here's my thing about that game, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here too much, but if it wasn't for the internet and other people helping you play through that, most people would stop playing that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because once you've picked up the phone 8 times, you're like, oh no, you're going to do it 9 times. It's just garbage.
There's a lot of great moments and
you
got little visual tricks.
Anybody would say that is one of the best games ever.
Oh, for sure. No, there's people talking about bronzing their PS4 or whatever for this. It's PT is an extremely highly regarded game among the enthusiast crowd.
I think it's just because some people have it.
It's because you can't get it anymore.
Don't. Yeah.
I'm sure it's the fear of missing out thing is kind of in play there. I think for sure.
Yep, and then the last game that caught my eye from PlayStation Experience, Yooka-Laylee. I'm all over that game. The more I see of it, the more I'm excited by it. And it's crazy to see Yooka-Laylee at a PlayStation event. Still, to me, that's very odd.
Oh, yeah, it's
to
nice
see a rare game on PlayStation.
Well, it's also nice to see it kind of gaining legitimacy with the mainstream platforms,
Yeah.
Because you kind of think of these, even the really successful Kickstarter stuff, you kind of think of as it's a PlayStation, or a PC release, and maybe you'll get a PlayStation release, but no one will really know what it is. But they're treating this as a big event game, even though it's not coming out of the same channels as normally you would.
Yeah.
And that's good to see.
It's just odd to see those people working on a game for PlayStation platforms.
It's odd to see those people working on a game I want to play for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah, that's a good point. What was the last Rare game that was worth playing, really?
Some people would say the Viva Pinatas, but it's a very different thing.
Yeah, I guess I would say that. That's probably right.
But in terms of a platformer style thing, Conquer.
Yeah. It's been a rough road, and that's probably why these guys left.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of making this mediocre crap.
It's sort of like Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's you've got these teams that have been stuck on these things that have been corporately mandated for how many years, and you're like, God, what kind of ideas must these guys have that they haven't been able to use for so long? And you're about to see this game that uses presumably all of them.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting game, just in terms of what it is and who's doing it.
Yep, I'm pretty excited about that. So, PlayStation Experience, December 3rd through the 6th. We'll actually have another episode of this show before PlayStation Experience happens. At least we should, barring something happening. Maybe we'll do some kind of a hangout or a viewing party for PlayStation Experience. It's kind of the last big event of the whole year. That and the Game Awards.
Local? That's here, right?
It's in Anaheim.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just 45-minute drive down the 405 or whatever. So
that's optimistic.
Yeah. Probably more like 2 hours or whatever. So it's still coming up, but we want to get it on your radar so you guys know to expect it and also kind of have a good idea of what's going to happen at the show. So let's move along. I feel like the industry, I keep getting depressed by it and then elated by it and then depressed by it. It's just this roller coaster that just keeps going, and most of it is related to sales. So, I've been watching these MPD reports where we get the year-over-year sales, and they keep going down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no. And then, I think you had mentioned, well, PlayStation 4 Pro, when that comes out, like, things are going to turn around.
We don't have those numbers yet, though.
We don't, although we do in Japan. First week of PlayStation Pro in Japan, did 65,000 units. This week it did 12,000 units. So it doesn't look like it's going to affect too much in Japan. Of course, we're completely different over here. It could make huge noise here.
Yeah, we don't know. And that's part of the other problem is like we're kind of constantly having to extrapolate from UK sales.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily know what, if economically that like sales over there are translating into a worldwide phenomenon, especially because of the Brexit situation.
Right.
Like you're got a lot of weird stuff happening right now. And granted, like games are not being affected as badly as Toblerone. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that.
Like,
yeah.
The candy market is getting screwed at this point. It's just injecting air into these things. But like, so I don't know. I don't know what how far that goes. Usually, the UK sales have been a good yardstick to refuse to use metric because we are.
Yeah, Patrick kind of blew off the UK sales numbers.
I kind of agree with him on that at this point. I wouldn't say that in other years, but this year there's so many X factors.
But here's the thing.
Speaking.
So we were seeing all these reports coming out of the UK about all these big-time games doing really poorly. Patrick answers a question about it, says, he thinks it's all bollocks and it doesn't matter because the UK is such a small market. Well, GameStop has its quarterly financial report, and basically what GameStop says is all the big Q4 games are not doing up to expectations. So the one that was brought up specifically by GameStop is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. It said it's already tracking well below what the expectations were and well below last year's game.
For GameStop.
See,
I think you put too much stock in GameStop in that regard.
Well, they are the biggest brick-and-mortar retailer in the U.S.
GameStop?
Yeah.
Walmart is infinitely larger than them in terms of game sales at retail.
Right, but we don't ever get any information from Walmart.
Right, but that doesn't change that fact. Like, it still counts as sold items, even if we have no way to track them.
Let me point them at you.
GameStop's business is collapsing underneath it,
No,
and I don't think that's about game sales. I think it's about nobody goes to GameStop anymore.
I don't think that's true, but to kind of address your point, when you run a poll, the first 5,000 people who answer the poll, you have your answer right then. You can poll another 10 million people, and the percentages are going to change maybe a point or two across those extra people. Like, really, it only takes a very small sample size to be able to project something out. And so GameStop has more than enough sample size to kind of figure out whether games are really doing poorly if they're selling at GameStop. And if you go back and look at prior quarterly reports from GameStop, when they said a game wasn't doing well, when the NPD came out, by golly, that game didn't do very well. So,
but like NPD is also showing software sales up year over year, where hardware
right,
sales
so
are
that's
down.
what I was getting at. So this roller coaster. It's like, oh my God, hardware sales are doing terrible. Oh my God, games are selling really bad in the UK.
And also remember the NPD, it was an NPD analyst who's now posting on GAF, and in the thread on NPD, the NPD results, he said, don't put too much doom and gloom stock in the Infinite Warfare numbers because it only had like 2 days.
Yeah.
Which it was interesting for someone to say because I'm like, well, isn't sales front-loaded anyway? So like, wouldn't that still be an indicator? But he was very adamant that like, wait for
November.
November.
What Pachter said.
Basically, he's like, wait for November numbers before you get worried about Call of Duty. And I'm like, all right. Like, I still feel like the opening weekend has something to say. That might just be the movie fan in me speaking. Yeah. But I feel like sales for these things are front-loaded. Like, you knew Titanfall was in trouble after it wasn't making the charts after that first week.
Yeah.
And that partly
and
because,
it is.
Yeah. And partly because, Call of Duty was a week after it, so it had no chance to, see also the Assassin's Creed movie, which will have a similar experience in the week after Rogue One. But, like, somehow in there, sales are still up for software. I don't know where that's coming from, if all these major franchises are down. But
so let's run through this real quick. So pretty much the list of games that are underperforming according to UK data and GameStop, Infinite Warfare, as we mentioned, Watch Dogs 2, Titanfall 2, and then the last one I've added here is Gears of War 4. And the reason I've added Gears of War 4 is because today you can buy Gears of War 4 for $30, half price. And the game's not even a month out from release. Has it been a month? Maybe?
Yeah, it's a little over a month, yeah.
Half price already. Mm-hmm. So that tells you nobody sells a game for half price if they're selling it for full price. That's just not how it works. And if you look at and we're going to talk about Black Friday stuff here in a little bit, but
like Black Friday stuff, for something that's really selling, you might get like $10 off.
Right, not half price.
Not half price. But
yeah.
In the case of Titanfall 2, it had already fallen to that much before the Black Friday stuff started.
So Matt, do you really think that this is nothing? I mean, can you remember a Q4 where 4 of the biggest games were at half price or less a month after they came out?
No, but at the same time, if sales are up software year over year,
for October,
people are buying something. So, like, it's interesting that the big guys are underperforming, but overall software sales are up, which means people are putting their money somewhere else. The question is, where is that?
Or it could have just been that last October was a terrible month for games and didn't have as many big releases as this one did.
Well, but the software sales are up.
Right, year over year. They're up this year, which what I was saying is they could have had a bad month for games last October.
I don't remember if last October was bad or not.
I have no
Certainly I don't remember as many reports about what we would consider surefire AAA big names underperforming.
Yeah, like this. I mean, it's like every day it's like one after another. We get a new, oh, well, this one's not doing well either. It's like I'm afraid for games to release now. Like, what's going to happen to The Last Guardian?
I'm probably going to sell about what they expect. I can't believe Sony thinks that one's going to crack the charts wide open or anything. I mean, they are
They're marketing it.
They are. I mean, they are giving it the old college try. But
no one will be able to say after this game comes out like it was sent out the dog.
Oh no, not at all.
Anything
not at
but.
all.
I mean, I'm seeing commercials for The Last Guardian during NFL football games.
Oh, there have been billboards up for it for over a month here in LA, and like. Again, I keep going back to the Assassin's Creed movie. Like, I can't get away from those damn commercials for that. I mean, everyone's going to know that Assassin's Creed, the movie, is coming out.
Yeah.
It's not going to help, but they're going to know it's coming out.
Yeah.
They're going to know what not to see. I mean, that's going to be too late for us to talk about that movie, but when we come back in January, I'm sure I will have a review for you.
Do you not think, though, that we're starting to see kind of what's happened in Japan with mobile gaming start to really take hold here?
I don't think... If sales were down, I would maybe think so, but, like, here's the thing. Like, in terms of, like, where the sales are sort of flagging, I kind of understand, Like, I get it. Like,
I mean, do you think finally people have reached, like, sequel fatigue?
I think it might be a combination of that plus it's a volatile fall in terms of
everything
politically speaking. Like people are unsure. You're not throwing money at luxury items when you're not sure what the economy is going to do in the next 4 months.
Yeah.
Stock market was way down at the election. Stock market's way back up now. Like it's very volatile, and you're not quite willing to spend buy 4 games. Maybe you're only going to buy 1 game. I think that's happening to some degree. Maybe we'll see what Black Friday's numbers are like. I poked around on the Black Friday deals. I am not seeing anything particularly exciting in the video game space, like on Amazon or any of those places. Like,
really?
I mean, there's some deals, but it's like nothing that made me go, oh wow, man. And like the ones that were like deep discounted were like, that's like Mafia 3, and it's just like, well,
there's another bomb.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't bomb, actually. It sold really well.
Well, apparently it sold really well, but we thought it should probably bomb.
Right?
But like,
which way turn people off to buying software in the future if so many people bought that and were disappointed in it? So,
which is funny because like Mafia 3 might be one of the things helping buoy the sales up year over year as opposed to crashing.
Well, I feel like we've been talking about this for at least once a month.
I'm very curious about Infinite Warfare actual sales, like because I know and why that would be because I know like a lot of people say, "Oh, it's because they wanted to charge you for Modern Warfare Remastered and everybody was mad, so they boycotted it." Or like I don't believe that for one damn second because gamers have no control when it comes to things they want to play. There's that famous picture of like the Steam group that was like boycott Modern Warfare 2, and it's the launch day and everybody's playing Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah,
and it's like. I just don't believe that there are people in that kind of that were that angry in those kinds of numbers to do that. And so why are people not buying this game? I don't know.
Maybe they are buying it. It was only a couple of days of sales, but UK's been right with every game so far. I mean, Ubisoft came out and said, yes, Watch Dogs 2 is selling far worse than we wanted it to.
We called that, though.
We did call it.
I mean, the Gardener could have told us that was going to happen in the wake of all these major shooters in this game that... I think Watch Dogs 1 overperformed as a result of its competitionless release window. When it got delayed, came out with nothing else around it, early in the next-gen space. There was nothing else that looked... it didn't even look as good as it was supposed to look. It had the downgrade from what we saw at E3 years earlier, but it still looked like a game made for next gen. It was doing some stuff that you could, put on your PlayStation 4 and be like, "Is it my PlayStation 4? It looks great." Sort of. I don't care about anything that's happening in this game.
Ubisoft is trying to say it's not concerned that it's looking at it like a platform and a long-term bet.
Well, I think the game could have legs in terms of word of mouth.
Look at Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm sure that's what they're looking at. They're like, hey, look at what GTA's doing. It's still in the top 10 every damn month. But this game isn't as good as Grand Theft Auto 5.
It's not, but people really like it. And, I could see it being given as a gift for Christmas a lot. Sometimes if you owned a PlayStation 4 and you knew me, I gave you The Witcher 3 last year. Yeah. I mean, that's just I'm sure a lot of gamers do that. They're gonna say I bought Black Friday deal. It was only like $56 for the deluxe Legacy edition of Infinite Warfare. Yeah. I bought one of those on Amazon today for my friend for Christmas because he's a big military sci-fi geek, and I know he'll like it. And I know he would never, ever think of picking up a Call of Duty for himself.
Right.
So I think there's some of that maybe going to happen. Is it going to make up for the sales that we're not seeing happening at launch because that's all entertainment products are front-loaded these days? No, that's going to take some massive word of mouth, some massive mind share increase for Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs 2 is going to have quite the renaissance to make, because the deficit...
Well, then if you couple that with Ubisoft's new stance we were talking about earlier...
Well, I think that's going to apply to Watch Dogs 2.
Yeah.
But, if these estimates are even close to accurate, like the UK sales are 80% down from the first game.
I know.
And I knew it was going to underperform compared to the first game because it's got competition, but I didn't know it was going to do that. I mean, that's really bad. Which also maybe indicates that people didn't like, Watch Dogs 1 sold very well, but people didn't like it that much.
Right. But if you look back at what Ubisoft is saying about part of the core experience, and then you look at what Rockstar and 2K did with Grand Theft Auto 5, Grand Theft Auto Online and all these new things that happen in that world, is that not a part of the base experience? It kind of is. That's where Rockstar makes a lot of its money.
It's hard to make that comparison right now with Watch Dogs 2 because the online didn't work.
Right. So. Well, it does now.
Does it now?
Finally, it does. Yeah, they finally got it fixed. It was supposed to launch over the weekend. They put out a patch that actually didn't fix the online.
Yeah, it just removed the nudity.
Right. And then yesterday...
Because that was what you needed to do quickly, rather than get the game working.
They can't have moms going crazy over nudity in a video game. Their kids shouldn't be playing it unless they're an adult.
The M-rated game they bought their kids.
Exactly. Yeah. So, if you look at that model, for Ubisoft to say this game's going to have legs, maybe content-wise, but financially, I don't know.
I'm sure Watch Dogs 3 is already on the boards because Ubisoft going to Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Do you think that affects this? Do they look at that and say, oh, maybe not, or do they think we've got to, do they acknowledge that we've got a good game here in Watch Dogs 2 in a lot of ways? Maybe the narrative is not as strong as it could be, but it's fun. It's fun to screw around with, and like maybe especially because if they're talking about like we talked about a couple shows ago about how they want to shift their narrative concepts conceptually to more of an organic and open way. Like Watch Dogs would benefit. Watch Dogs would benefit tremendously from that, because if you could just make that flow a little better and not make me feel like I'm stopping my open world fun to focus on this story I don't particularly care about. That would improve the experience immensely. So Watch Dogs 3 would be a very, very good test bed for that new idea, I think. I just hope they don't kill the series, because the series does have potential. I just hope they don't kill it because this one underperformed.
Well, I think part of their problem is that they put out 2 games and they've been like basically completely different.
Well, yeah.
Like imagine if you put a screenshot of Watch Dogs 2 next to a screenshot of the first Watch, nobody would ever guess they were the same franchise.
No, I mean this is GTA 3 versus Saints Row.
Exactly.
It's too complete. At least they're recognizing that the Watch Dogs 1 approach was not the right approach.
A lot of people bought the first one though.
Yeah, but a lot of people apparently didn't like it very much.
Did they? Or do they not like this one? They liked the old one, and they're pissed off that they changed it so much, and they're like, I'm not buying that.
I mean, it's possible, but like I'd prefer not to think that people loved the edgelordy gray bullshit of the first game.
I'd agree with that. At least I hope so. But here's one thing I would say is
I am used to, at this point in this year, I am used to disappointment in what people want. Though.
Yeah, you're right. For sure. Wink, wink. So here's what I would say. Watch Dogs 2 is a great game. And a lot of times when you have a great game that maybe doesn't do real well out of the gate, there is kind of some hope that over time, enough people will experience it and get around it enough that they buy it, or enough people talk about it. It's not a lost cause yet, I guess is what I'm trying to say. On some of these other games...
80% is a big number, though.
That is huge, yeah. Titanfall 2 might be a lost cause, though.
Maybe. I hope Respawn's not a lost cause.
No. They'll have all that Star Wars money flowing in from EA. They'll be fine.
But Titanfall, like that campaign in Titanfall 2 makes me want more Titanfall. More of the world. Not the, I don't even care about the
I want more Titanfall more than I want more Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Unique shooters are few and far between these days.
That's
all right,
true.
Let's move along.
And I will always default to giant robots.
Yeah.
So maybe Watch Dogs 3 has giant robots.
Yep. Let's move on. Can mean one thing. It's time for our weekly Nintendo Switch update. I wish I had some kind of unique sound effect. Maybe we need to find one for Sam to fire off every week when we do the Switch update.
Just get that little jingle they play when Mario dies.
Actually, you know what? There is a whole bank of sound effects in the TriCaster, and
I never got those to play right.
There's a ton of them. There's like Pac-Man dying in there and a bunch of them. But anyway, maybe we'll find those for our next episode.
Mario coins MP3.
Play the coin, see if it works.
So just click it.
Yeah, you just play it. There it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's find a good sound, and then I'll intro the segment again. That's a good one. That's perfect. All right. All right, it's time to move on, folks. We're going to our weekly Nintendo Switch segment. Oh, he had the wrong one, but whatever. There was a few things to talk about this week from the Nintendo Switch side of things. Probably the biggest news, what came out again from GameStop just loves to flap its gums. Like, the biggest thing that came out is that according to the CEO of GameStop, the Nintendo Switch will have motion controls.
How?
Said it's part of the Joy-Con controllers. There's gyroscopes. I don't know.
Those things are tiny. Like, how much is in that thing?
I mean,
only so much space in a controller, unless they're talking about a separate add-on to buy.
That could be.
Because I think this thing's going to be accessorized to within an inch of its life.
Do you think it's a good idea for Nintendo to have motion controls in the Switch?
Well, if you want to continue to support like kind of the old Wii and Wii U stuff,
I mean, I get backwards compatibility. You need it,
but like in terms of going forward and continuing to use that, I don't think that's any. I think it's time to leave that behind to some degree. Also, like I don't think that's going to work in terms of the portability of the system because you need the sensor bar for that. So
unless the sensor bar is built into the tablet.
But so what am I holding it out here while I wiggle the thing around? Like that doesn't make any sense.
I don't know that sensor bar did a whole hell of a lot anyway. To be honest,
well, it's the infrared tag is how it works. I mean, I would think that would mean you can only use the motion control stuff while it's docked in its console mode.
which you probably would only want to do anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
Who's going to want to use motion controls on a plane or at the
also,
airport?
like, if you got motion controls, you got to stand back a little bit, and this is a 6-inch screen. You're not going to be able to see anything.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, I mean, whatever. There's a lot of questions I have about, there's a rumor that Xenoblade Chronicles X is going to be on the
Right.
Switch. How in the living hell are you going to see that UI on a 6-inch screen? Like, they're going to have to rework that, right?
Well, I think they're also getting some outside developer to work on it. Like, they're not going to do it in-house. Like, Monolith is moving on to something else. And
Well, good, because they need to make something else rather than just
But it'll be just like...
Yeah, but it's just constant
Xenoblade.
port stream of, like...
Yeah.
It's like the Wii U's greatest hits that you've either already played if you had a Wii U or that didn't convince you to buy a Wii U in the first place. I don't really know where they're going with that.
I think my point about motion control is that it is ultimately it's kind of become a stigma for Nintendo that people look at and they're like, oh, Nintendo's consoles, or you flail your arms around, you swing a tennis racket or whatever. And I feel like the public kind of voted with the Wii U that it doesn't really care about that anymore. And I feel like if Nintendo were to put that feature kind of out there, or definitely not, if they put it out front and center, I think it could literally doom the Switch.
Yeah, I don't think front and center. I think it'll be there if you want it. And like it makes sense. I mean, I kind of expected some kind of solution for that, because if they're gonna do this Skyward Sword remaster, I figured it's not just gonna be a Wii U game. You're gonna have to find a way to play it on the Switch. So, which is also addresses one of my concerns about that game, whereas like it's so tied in with the motion control and the Wii Motion Plus and all that stuff. I was worried that Skyward Sword would kind of become a lost Zelda game. Because at a certain point, when you move forward enough with the hardware, you're going to lose the Wiimotes,
right?
And they won't be able to play that game anymore outside of like emulation or.
Because Skyward Sword, like, it's pretty much required.
Yeah, like I don't see how you redo that game to only use buttons.
It would take a lot more work than Nintendo's done on its other remaster projects.
It'd be a different game. It'd be a totally different game.
Yeah, it would be.
Probably a better game, but it would be a very different game, and I can't see Nintendo doing that to it.
Speaking of Breath of the Wild, June now is looking like its release date.
Yeah,
Right
around E3, which kind of makes sense because at least then you don't have to put it at E3 again, because that's embarrassing.
Yeah. GameStop did mention that it could come out around April. Yeah.
I also saw the rumors, the people that were saying that like the Switch version might be first, that the Wii U version be later.
What?
Which is like,
imagine if they put out the Wii U version first, though, which is
never.
what they should do.
No, they shouldn't. What are you
Well,
talking about?
I'm just saying for the fans, not financially.
Screw the fans. Like these companies are not your friend. They're not here to. They're here to make money, and the way to make money off of us is to hold the Zelda for ransom.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying that they would do it or financially they should do it. I'm just saying from a fan's perspective, who is a lot of people of which bought the Wii U for Zelda.
From a fan's perspective, they should send everyone who owns a Wii U a Switch with Zelda.
Yeah.
Just to apologize for the stupid system they made.
It's only 10 million. I can almost do it.
They got the cash. You know?
Yeah.
They sell a couple more 3DSs.
And then the final news Switch topic for this week is basically the price has been confirmed. A European retailer, in fact, you can go right now and you can pre-order the Switch for €200 right now. Paid. Of course, you may be sitting on that pre-order for
a while, yeah.
If it doesn't come out in March and it's delayed until June to come out with Zelda or whatever, you could be sitting on that pre-order for a long time, but you can lock in your Switch right now, one, and make sure you get one at launch. But two, make sure you lock in that price that's kind of being bandied about right now, which €200, 250 US.
250 was kind of what we thought.
Yeah.
It's a good price for what
It's a really good price. Like, I feel like, based upon these retailers, like, I should have mentioned, by the way, that Breath of the Wild date came from Target. Target.com put the game up. Had 6/13 as the release date. That is not like a release date you just pull out of your butt.
No, usually the standard placeholder is 12/31.
Right.
You know,
and if they did not have a release date, that's what it would have said, or it just would have said TBA 2017.
Because the people who put these, enter these things into their databases don't know
games.
They're
just doing their job basically, and it said 6/13. So that's pretty reliable. At least
they don't know it's a secret.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the little creatures in nature, they don't know that they're ugly.
Yeah. So, that is some good news, though. The €200 for Switch, That puts it around $250 in the U.S.
It feels like the right price for that,
does.
especially if you're using SD cards, which I think generally most of us have larger ones.
Yeah.
Then we'll come with a system sitting around that we can use.
Yeah.
So $250 is a good price, I think.
Yeah, I think it will sell its whole initial ship allotment.
Oh, I think it was going to do that no matter what, because you're going to sell that to the Nintendo fans by default.
Yeah.
It's the second shipment you have to worry about, really.
Yeah, that's a good point. But
the Wii U sold out when it came out too.
I think maybe I should rephrase that. I think at $250 it turns into, at least for a brief amount of time, another Wii thing.
But also turns into an impulse buy.
Yeah.
When we get closer to like kind of the holiday area. $250 was the right price for the Wii U for me. I mean, granted, it came with Smash Brothers and Splatoon, but like...
And 4 years later.
Right, but it was last year, a year ago today, Black Friday, I went into Target at 2 in the morning and picked up a Wii U with that bundle for $250, and that was the right price for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it came with 2 games, but whatever. Still, $250 is a low enough price for a game system that I'm like, all right, yeah, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
These game systems are like $300-$400. That's a different thing, especially when I'm not sure if it's just going to be a box where I play Nintendo games once a quarter on it, which is exactly what the Wii U has become as well.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I have it to play.
Tokyo
Mirage
that's kind of what its last 3 consoles.
I'm going into the Switch also assuming that too, which is why if Zelda's not at launch, I don't care. Because I know I'm going to get it. I'm going to get Zelda, and maybe I'll get that Mario game if it's a launch title by some miracle. I think people keep saying Mario launch, and there's sort of this assumption that it's that 3D one that we saw 5 seconds of in the teaser. But there's this cynical part of me that says like it might be the Super Mario Switch Maker version.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they're going to show that new 3D Mario unless it's something that's on the way soon.
On the way, sure. Soon, I don't know.
It's been 3 years. There's been plenty of time.
The timing is right, but like I remain skeptical that they're willing to blow that stuff out at launch that hard. I mean, to blow your Mario and your Zelda game at launch or close to launch, like what have they got for the fall at that point?
Metroid. Retro's working on something.
Retro's not working on Metroid. I guarantee you.
I'm sure they hope they're not. From what they said, they're pretty sick of working on that franchise, but sometimes you don't have a choice.
Iga volunteered to make another Metroid for them.
Yeah, I saw that. I would rather have another Metroid from them than another side-scrolling Donkey Kong game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I respect Tropical Freeze, and I enjoyed it, but I'd rather have a Metroid game. I think, honestly, Donkey Kong may sell a little better.
I think it does. Metroid is not a sales demon.
Yeah.
Really. It's a fan favorite with those of us.
Yeah.
But like it's never been one of their most popular franchises.
Yep.
And then Zelda. I mean Zelda, Mario. Actually, Mario's on its own level. Zelda doesn't even sell Mario level stuff.
Yep. So that's Switch for this week. I'm sure we'll be back next week with another. Can you play that cue? Yeah, he's on it. Good job. We'll see you next week on that one. Let's move along. We're going to talk about Black Friday. So, Matt, you kind of spoiled it already. You said you didn't see anything on Black Friday.
Not a lot.
Really? I thought the deals were insane today, man.
What were you looking at, then?
Sifted. Our deals channel was rocking. People should use our freaking deals channel on Black Friday. I sent out a tweet today. I'm like, why are you wasting your time going all over the place when we have one page that collects freaking every single deal?
I mean, part of the problem might have been that I have most stuff already.
So I'm at our deals channel right now.
Mm-hmm.
So here's Gears of War for $35. Here's Skyrim Special Edition for $24.99. Here's $100 off Rift. Here's $1,000 for a package with a PC and the Rift that Oculus is saying is Rift ready. Which I have a hard time believing, but that's what they're saying.
But don't get the Rift.
Motherboards, pretty much all of them for half off.
Does that Rift deal include the motion controllers?
I don't think it does include touch. No. Yeah. Still $1,000 for a rig and Rift. Yeah. That's a good deal. Motherboards, half off. Nintendo actually did a Black Friday sale.
Yeah, I saw it popped up on my Wii U.
First-party Nintendo software, half price off. Mm-hmm. That's insane. That never happens.
That's happened.
like once in a blue moon it happens.
Here and there. I mean, I got
Very
what's it? Super Mario 3D World on Wii U. That went on sale because Nintendo stuff is always full retail launch price on their digital thing. And at some point earlier this year or late last year, they sold that off. It was like $24, $25.
Yeah.
It was like half price or less, like 60% off. And I'm like, I'm buying the hell out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, even at retail, Nintendo games never dropped to that price. So Nintendo's learning in terms of the digital pricing. They're getting there. It doesn't surprise me that they've got some good Black Friday things going on.
Here's a GameStop $225 Alienware Steam machine. Those Steam machines are now plummeting.
Oh yeah.
Which I think we could all get
Get
against
them
that.
out of here. Yeah.
Fallout 4 for $10. Civilization 6 for $40. That's $20 off. It just came out a couple weeks ago. Headphones.
I saw that was a deal for. What was it? It was the Xbox One. It was a CD keys. It was the Xbox One version of Assassin's Creed Unity for $1.86.
Jeez.
Can't beat
Oh my
that.
God. Here's the GeForce GTX 1060 for $170.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a crazy good deal. I mean, today was an amazing. It's not over yet.
See, I was thinking about games, not hardware.
There are crazy sales on games. Like if you go to the PlayStation Store or Xbox Live, there's stuff like half off, like all over the place. There were some crazy bundles that came out today. You could get like an Xbox One for $250 plus and it was a bundle. It was like the Gears of War original bundle pack, not the Gears of War 4, plus 2 games for like $250. Like, did you buy anything today?
Game wise, I
Yeah.
bought. I bought Infinite Warfare as a gift. I bought some Steam stuff over the last couple days because they're having their autumn sale, which is technically a Black Friday sale when you think about it. So I got what did I get on that? I got actually the Secret World Ultimate Edition because I like that game.
Interesting.
The Ultimate Edition.
That's an oldie, but a goodie.
Oldie, yeah. So the Ultimate Edition is all because it's got like chapter episodes. I think there's like 15 episodes. It's an MMO by the guys who made The Longest Journey. And the first 4 are the core game, and then there's a 5th one you get free if you were like a founding member, and then the rest of them you have to buy. And they're expensive. Like each episode's it's like 10 episodes. I think they're up to 15, and each one's like $20 or something. I mean, they're real expensive.
Holy cow!
So, but then the Ultimate Edition is $60 for everything, for all the expansion stuff. So it's like a good deal already, and then that is on sale for $17. So $17 gets you all the content they've made so far, and it's buy to play, so there's no subscription.
Right.
And I like that. I mean, it's a clunky Eurojank like MMO, but like it's set in the modern world in which like all the paranormal Lovecraftian sort of conspiracies are all true, and it's very story driven, and if you can get past the very clunky interface and sort of awkward voice acting presentation here and there, like it's a really if you're a fan like the X-Files or something, like it's a cool game to dig through.
Do you think Black Friday is kind of irrelevant with Cyber Monday?
I mean, it all
What's the difference?
It all kind of blends together.
It seems like all the deals were happening today already online.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's like President's Day. The sale.
Did you go to a brick and mortar store today?
Oh no,
me either. I went
to the grocery store. I don't think that counts.
There's brick and mortar.
But
that's about the only brick and mortar store I go to anymore.
But even last year, when I bought the Wii U, I went to Target at 2 a.m. I mean,
oh, you did?
Yeah, it was like Thanksgiving night, and I was up at 2 a.m. and I was like. Because I was thinking about when do I have to get up because I was about to go to bed because I knew I was going to get up and go early to Target to get the deal.
Right.
And I looked up and I realized, and I didn't realize the Target in West Hollywood is open all night. It was open. It opened like the evening of Thanksgiving and wasn't going to close till Friday, basically like Friday midnight.
Right.
They were open for like 30 hours straight or something, and so I'm like, well, I just go now. So I got in the car and I just went 2 in the morning. They had them all on the shelf. Picked it up, bought the thing. Nobody was there. Walked out. Done. I got it home. There was like dirt or something under the screen, so I actually had to return it and go back.
All right.
in the morning.
That, yeah.
But if I'd picked the Wii U next to it, that would have been like the greatest Black
Right.
Friday ever. It'd been like, I did it 2 a.m. I brought it home, put it on the ground, went to sleep, got up, opened my Wii U, played. It was great. You know? So I don't do the camp out thing. I mean, obviously because I'm here. It's like, I don't understand the point of that. So like, the Cyber Monday stuff is great because if I'm going to shop for any kind of weird deals like that, I'm going to do it online. It's just like, and if I don't get it, I don't get it. What did I lose? I opened a web page, Yeah. I tried to get one of those $99 new 3DSs just to have one.
They sold out like that.
But they were gone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But I would have liked to do that, but I'm not going to put
I thought initially that the 3DS
I'm not going to put a
was,
tent in front of a Walmart for that.
Yeah, see, I thought that the 3DS price was just like universal. And like from now on, the 3DS costs $100. Is that not the case?
I don't think so.
I thought it was. I thought it was like a permanent price drop.
Is it?
It should be.
It should be. Yeah, it would make sense. I don't know. I just saw that was the thing that was starting today or only today. I don't know. But it got my attention. I already have a 3DS, but I know that that 3DS may not last forever.
Yeah.
And if they're really moving away from the handheld thing,
it could be the last one.
That backwards compatible gravy train might be drying up. So I kind of like to have a backup for one day in case I need one.
My problem with Black Friday and Cyber Monday is it's just too much. It's like you have like these flash deals. It's like today we were curating, trying to get all the deals up onto the site, and it's like sometimes an article would come into the admin and it's like, you have 30 minutes to get this deal. And by the time we got sorted through and got to it in the admin, like the deal had already expired. And then I went to Amazon and started looking around, and it's like, you have 5 minutes and there's one. Oh, now there's none of these left. And it turns into this like mad scramble trying to save $50. And what I end up asking myself is like, what is worth this amount of money? Is it my time and my dedication to like saving $50 worth the $50? I don't know.
That's a question every man must answer for himself.
But there were amazing bundle deals. There was this one, I don't think it was Humble Bundle. It was from a new retailer. It's like 151 games for like $20. Like the autumn sale for Steam just started today. Like the deals are through the roof, man. Like there's really no reason to pay full price for almost anything anymore. And I'm wondering, tying back to a prior topic, if that's maybe part of the reason that like some of these games aren't selling as well, because people have got burned in the past. They're like, last year I bought this game for $60, and 3 weeks later my buddy bought it for $30. So why am I going to be the sucker and buy this thing at full price?
Well,
and it's working. Look at Titanfall 2, Gears of War 4, half price.
Or it's like I saw some. I don't remember where it was, but I saw maybe it was a tweet. But I saw some. It was basically like, I hope nobody bought Skyrim remastered at full price.
Yeah, it's already $35.
$30.
Yeah. Maybe it's scaring people off. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear if you guys have had any, if you got any amazing Black Friday deals today. Let us know in the chat.
I bought a couple of toy robots, but that's
Yeah.
I didn't really. I mean, the nature of this show means I'm pretty caught up on video games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bought nothing today, by the way. Not a single thing. I've not spent a penny anywhere today. So let us know if you guys got any hot deals in the chat. I'd be interested to know if any of you guys scored, or at least you thought you scored. Maybe tomorrow you may not think you did. Because that's the thing, like these deals, they can just keep going down if the sales aren't getting where they want them to be. So, all right, let's move along. We're going to talk, we mentioned the Game Awards a little earlier, Matt. We're going to talk about them again. The Game Awards are December 1st, which is next Thursday.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know, they're coming up quick. Here in Los Angeles. I'm invited to the Game Awards, but I don't know if I'm going to go. There's so much media that comes out of the Game Awards that you kind of need to be around to get the stuff into the site.
Give me your invite and I'll go represent.
Okay, I may actually do that. I may even do maybe a sifted hangout where we just sit and kind of watch it together. So
I met a couple of sifted subscribers at the Game Awards last year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, a couple people came up and said hi.
Cool. I don't know if I'm going to go. I'm like 50-50. And it's also like a show night. We have to bump the show a day or something for next week, so keep that in mind, guys. So far, not much has come out. I think they said there's the Uncharted 4 story stuff. That leaked. And then there's a new Mass Effect. There's something else that was announced today. There's going to be, like, there's 4 things that were announced, all from games that we know about already. And then we obviously, with the Game Awards in any show, Jeff has said he's going to put an onus on games being shown in gameplay instead of trailers or whatever, because of things that happen in prior shows where people were misled. I think it's ridiculous that he had to even say that, but that's
And,
where
and that's all coming out of the No Man's Sky thing.
It is, yeah. I think it's ridiculous that he has to. It's not his fault. Like the
Right.
game, anyway.
There's no way he could know.
It's insane that he had to do that. I think it's crazy. But one of the things that did come out of the Game Awards that I believe might be a legitimate controversy is that there is an award at the Game Awards for Best Fan-Made Video Game. And when
best fan thing, basically. Yeah.
Right. And so when they first announced the nominees for the awards, there were two games that were on the list of nominees that have now mysteriously disappeared. And those two games were Pokemon Uranium, which is a fan-made version of... Which one?
Nothing. It's an original
Oh, it's all
game.
completely original.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is a completely original Pokemon game that looks just as good as pretty much the
Yeah.
Pokemon game I'm playing right now. It was removed. And then this other fan project, which actually is kind of a remake of an old game called AM2R. And it's basically the Game Boy...
It's Metroid 2.
It's Metroid 2 from the Game Boy, remade.
Yeah.
And
Remade like with a zero mission kind of
Right.
aesthetic, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's honestly one of the best games released this year.
That's so sad.
As like someone who, like I think I've brought up my lamenting that there's been 4 2D Metroids in 30 years, and 3 of them came out before I was out of high school.
Yeah.
It was nice because again, Metroid 2 is fine, but going back to play that one on the old Game Boy, it's a tough one. Trying to go back to play any Metroid game that doesn't have a map is
It's tough.
an exercise in frustration. So the fact that he updated this game with, the content's there, like the story's there, but the content is, updated to include the advances that have been made in Super Metroid and Zero Mission and Fusion, and it's fantastic. It's if Nintendo was smart, they would have just hired a guy.
Right. Instead of removing his game from the Game Awards,
Right.
because I full-heartedly believe that Nintendo went to Jeff Keighley and said to him, either you remove these games, or whatever we have worked out with you for the Game Awards, which I'm guessing is probably some Switch-related something.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
they
remember, a couple years ago, they were basically a sponsor of the awards. The same year they won everything.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but like they've been very involved with the, like there's always
Every year
interviews
they
with
have
Reggie
some
and
big
all that. They're
thing
part of
there.
it. They're part of the production, and I absolutely believe they're like, get that out of there.
Yep. And it's a shame, but
And on one hand, like I feel like for whatever reason,
yeah. How do you feel about the whole thing?
Well, for whatever reason, I feel like I understand Pokemon Uranium more. Although I have played Pokemon Uranium, and it's not as good as pretty much any real Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Visually, like it's an amazing piece of work, but in terms of what you're playing, like it's the same kind of grind. It doesn't really do anything different. It's just sort of more of what you already know about. But I can understand it because it's sort of you could confuse it easily with an official Nintendo product if
Either of these games.
yeah. And say, well, I wouldn't confuse the Metroid one with an official Nintendo product because it's a Metroid game, and they don't make those anymore. It's like, oh, look at that. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, I'm joking, but I'm also not joking.
Right,
Like, it's
yeah.
like it's like this guy did a remake of a game that you don't even care about
Yeah.
anymore. Nintendo. So yeah, you got to protect your IP. You can't like just let that thing fly around. But to kind of strong arm the idea of recognizing the work, kind of shitty.
Yeah. And so
Like-
here's the thing. It's like,
Like I can see both sides of it, but in terms, just as a fan of games and recognizing what has come before, like it would have been nice to sort of have this moment where you're like, hey, look how great Metroid is. Remember that?
here's the thing. You got to figure out what this is. Because if you're calling it the Game Awards, that leads me to believe that it is about rewarding the best products, games, whatever, in whatever category they're nominated in.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to allow a publisher to come to you and say, hey, we don't want those in the show, you're sacrificing the integrity of the show because it's no longer become like what the best fan-made whatever it is. It's the best fan-made thing that Nintendo doesn't have a problem with.
Well, that's assuming you think that was ever there to begin with.
What was ever there to begin with?
The integrity of the show as an award show, because the Game Awards are a commercial. They're not an award show. An award show like what we're thinking about with the Oscars, that's usually the touchstone is like the Oscars,
Right.
the Emmys. That's a recognition of an industry recognizing outstanding performers in its own self. It's not a corporate sponsored event that like you see the first trailers of new movies at the Oscars or anything like that. It's the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences recognizing talent within itself.
Yeah,
the
but-
Game Awards.
No, Matt, you're missing it, though. There's just a roundabout way for those movies to do that. It's called TV commercials.
Right, but like that's not really the point of how the Oscars started.
The money, but
that's
it
not
doesn't matter, though.
No, it
We're
doesn't.
talking
It
about
doesn't-
the show.
It doesn't. Well,
the show as it exists. Who cares where it came from?
I care where it came from because the Oscars would happen whether they were televised or not, and the Game Awards wouldn't.
I don't know.
I do. I guarantee you. The Oscars are televised primarily because it is a gathering of all these people, all these celebrities that everybody wants to see.
It's televised for money. That's why it's
tele-
televised.
Right, but the money comes from the fact that all these people are in the same place and everyone wants to see celebrities and the celebrity culture and tabloid culture and all that. Like that kind of all collides in this one location for this
It's the same
one
reason
night.
people want to watch the Game Awards. It's all the developers,
No,
all the hot games.
People want to watch the Game Awards to see the reveals. And the reveals are
Right.
there because of corporate synergy. It's not the same thing. The closest thing to the Oscars we have in the video game industry is something like the Game Developers
DICE
Choice
Awards.
Awards or the DICE Awards, where an industry recognizes talent within itself. The Game Awards are a media
This
production.
has been billed as the Oscars of video games.
Right,
by the
but
way.
that's disingenuous. It's a commercial. It's a marketing strategy. And like I don't begrudge them that because we get a lot of cool reveals in December when nothing else happens. It's a good
But this is why I'm saying
counterpoint
it needs to
E3.
decide what it is. Is it?
I think it has decided what it is. It's
But
just
it-
it uses the trappings of an award show as an excuse for its commercial media.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is.
Well, I think the hope was that when Jeff broke away from doing the VGAs with Spike, and he said this, we want to make the award show a show that it represents what people hated about the VGAs. And so to me, like I came into the Game Awards with a different perspective from what we had done, and I worked on the VGAs for 7 years or something like that. So I know what that's all about, and so I know what the exact opposite of the VGAs is, and I know Jeff knows too because he worked on the VGAs extensively, far more than I even did. So for him to say this is the anti-VGAs and this is me doing things my way, to me it's called the Game Awards. It's not called like the coolest damn video of game event of 2016. It's called the Game Awards. And so for me, it does bother me that a show that's called the Game Awards is allowing someone to jimmy with the nominees and the winners. And I get it. Jeff was put in a position where I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact, so don't quote me on this. This is me guessing what happened, having worked on these award shows for years. Nintendo came to them and said, look, you got to take them out. If you don't, we're going to pull our
explanation is
media.
there?
And then Jeff has to sit there and say, okay, well, the integrity of the show versus not having that new Zelda demo in the show. That's a tough call.
Is it?
You don't think?
No, not for 1 second. The Game Awards are about reveals and new trailers and game announcements. They're not about being awards.
But that's what I'm saying. If you
Final Fantasy should be the last fantasy, but there's 15 of them. Like what's called doesn't matter. You call it the Game Awards to get people in there and to kind of like see who's going to win this contest because everybody likes to argue over the rankings at the end of the year. But the reason the show exists is to show these new things, these reveals. Like that's what gets people in the seats, not in the seats, but eyeballs on the thing. Everybody wants to see the new stuff. Like if it was like a Game Awards show that was focusing on the awards, on the recognition of the great achievements of the year, they would not be showing trailers of new games. They'd be showing highlights of the games they were giving awards to show how great they are.
No, I get why people watch the show. I'm just telling you what Jeff said this show was supposed to be, and it's not turned out to be that. It's
Right.
honestly gone back to be, other than having a little bit more highbrow entertainment as far as music artists and things like that, it's kind of just like the VGAs. It got rid of the Mountain Dew Lose Your Mind Award and all those kind of corny sponsored awards that they had.
We lost the Doritos and we gained Imagine Dragons. Like, what are you going to do?
I'm just a little disappointed to see this happen.
I
understand the position he was put in. It's
it
a tough
is
position.
disappointing, but like, are you surprised by that?
Yeah. I
Really?
know Jeff. Yeah, I believe Jeff has integrity, and I believe the things that the VGAs had to do to stay on the air was not something that he was in support of. And so, and you could hear it from himself when he started the Game Awards. That was something that he verbalized to people, that he did not want this new award show to, one, have the hangover of the VGAs, and he wanted to completely change it and make it something that the people who actually care about games will want to watch.
Right, and I believe that, and I believe he does have integrity on that level, and that's what he wants out of this show. But when it comes down to it, what's going to get more eyeballs on this thing, which is how these things survive now, and survival is a really tough question in this world of media. You want your Switch reveal, or you want to recognize the fan remake of Metroid 2?
Yeah, no, I get it.
And that's not and when it comes down to someone who has to keep this show going and keep people watching it and keep it alive for another year, that's not a decision.
Yeah.
You go with the Switch.
Then you've made your bed.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
You've said at that point, this show isn't about.
But that's the nature. I mean, it's just like the MTV Movie Awards or whatever. It's like that's the nature of having an award show that is functioning on a corporate sponsorship level and not an independent entity that represents the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is not a commercial entity.
The problem is Jeff should crowdfund the show.
Yeah.
If he did that, he could tell Nintendo to buzz off.
Sure. Or I think the industry should focus more on something like the DICE Awards, where that is the industry, the people who make these things, recognizing the best among them.
But to your point, nobody would watch.
You might.
The audience for the DICE Awards versus what Jeff is doing, I'm guessing would be
just two different
15%.
It's two different things. But what I'm saying is, the Oscars are what they are because movie stars are awesome and exciting and cool, and game developers are not. And there's a hierarchy of those award shows too. The Oscars are the hot one. The Emmys are a little below that. The Grammys are a little below that. Nobody watches
Nothing else matters.
Nobody watches the
nobody
watches the
don't
Tonys because
the rest don't
the
matter.
Tonys exist so you can have the EGOT. Win all four major awards,
right.
even though everyone's like, wait, what's the fourth one?
Yeah.
Oh, the stage one. Okay, Tonys.
Nobody cares
Tony
about
Randall?
that.
Like, I don't know. But it's like, that's everybody struggles with this idea that like games don't have an awards show that like matches what these other artistic mediums have, and the reason is our awards shows come out of a more commercialized space rather than sort of evolving out of an entity that exists to recognize artistic achievement. And Jeff, I think, is trying for something like that, but the realities of survival in multimedia, especially in the gaming space, is you got to have something nobody else has, and you're going to have to make some compromises for that when it comes down to it, especially when you're dealing with people that like to have control over their brands. Yeah. And, the solution to this really was don't put that fan category in there to begin with, because I could have told you right off the bat that Nintendo was going to not be cool with that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And it's too,
See, the problem is you can put the category in, but you don't know what the nominees are going to be until the journalists give them to you.
Yeah, but I could have told them that at least the Metroid
and usually
thing.
Jeff is savvy enough to pick up on stuff like that and kind of head it off at the pass and just cut that category before it even happens.
Yeah, but also he has a really good relationship with Nintendo that spans years and years, and maybe he thought he could talk them into it, and
he knew he couldn't do that.
You can't do that. That's not going to happen.
I guarantee he knew he couldn't.
Or maybe
do
he's
that.
like, maybe they just won't notice. It's like, but it's like I can.
This
see
is where getting everybody involved, the whole YouTube thing, goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because you can see Jeff's new show. He's like having YouTubers come on and just sit there and play games for like 10 minutes before the show starts, and like you can see him trying to transform from this old media guy into this new media guy. And I'm sure this was all part of that. Is like, let's get the people who are making games involved, which is great, but it ultimately backfired, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. I like the attempt.
Yeah,
because the Pokemon Uranium I'm lukewarm on, but like that Metroid game deserves as much recognition as you can get, especially because it was pulled after 24 hours.
Yep. All right, let's move on. It's time for our Turkey Awards. Something that we did on GT on Invisible Walls for many years has made its way over to GameFace. It's basically our one chance of the year to really let some of these publishers have it for stuff that we are not getting behind and we do not believe in. Matt and I are both going to pick a runner-up and then a winner for each of our Turkey Awards. Matt, what is your runner-up?
My runner-up is Mafia 3.
Mafia 3.
Which apparently sold just fine.
Yes, it did. 4 to 5 million copies right out of the gate.
Like, I don't know what happened here. Like, I feel like there was a lot of I think this project maybe changed hands a couple times behind the scenes. But it's just, it's side quest filler as primary game content. And I haven't really gone back to it since we talked about it on the show. I just don't see the point, even though, like, the story's very strong and presentationally it's very strong in terms of cinematics and stuff. But, like, the problem is I have to play it to see it. And, like, in the end, I just sort of watched the cutscenes on YouTube. Because it's just not worth my time to grind through all this side mission stuff that's not side mission stuff because you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, in any other game, the meat of this game would be a side quest. And I don't mean that in a positive way.
Right.
You know, like... And it's just unfortunate because this game, you know, the game tackles some tough subject matter. And I think it does it pretty damn well.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't it just deserve to be off your turkey list just for that?
No, because like you always say, gameplay is paramount.
Yeah.
And the gameplay in this doesn't work. I mean,
it's pretty broken.
You know, it would be a pretty good CG movie, but like, you know, I'm not.
Would it even be a pretty good CG movie, really? Outside of the context of being a video game?
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I'm not saying it could stand up against Pixar or whatever,
Right.
but like, you know, this is a very interesting treatment of race in a medium that doesn't have very nuanced portrayals of any kind of social matter for the most part. Unless you're talking about something like That Dragon Cancer. But like, you know, and so I think it deserves to be seen, but at the same time, I wouldn't like tell anyone to play it.
Yeah.
I just tell them to watch it. I just wish it was better, and like, you know, some of it's coloring my choice of it as like, if you're thinking about games that I didn't enjoy, there were a lot of games I didn't enjoy this year, and some of them I probably didn't enjoy more than this, or enjoyed less than this.
Right.
But this one, I think, hurt the most because it
could have had some promise.
Could have been better. It should have been better, and like, it's not like it didn't have enough templates to follow to be better.
I have a feeling this game, 3 or 4 years from now, might be looked at the same way that Spec Ops: The Line is now. It's one of those games that had issues, but pushed sort of the narrative forward a little bit on what can be and cannot be done in video games.
Yeah. It's certainly not it's not at all without merit. It's got a lot of merit but it's just, it doesn't really have merit in the places you play.
Where it matters.
You know, like, it's the places it excels aren't going to help you feel any better about what you have to play when the game starts. You know.
Fair enough. My runner-up is VR. You surprised by that pick at all?
No.
No?
It keeps making you throw up.
I actually have not thrown up yet. I have gotten really close. I wished I had thrown up.
Look, any game that would make me nauseous over and over again would get my award for that too, or at least a runner-up for that.
But it's not actually the reason it's my runner-up is not because it makes me nauseous at all. It's the fact that we've had a full year of virtual reality, and there is not a single damn killer app for virtual reality still.
You're not wrong.
Still. Sony sat back and watched the Vive and the Oculus limp out of the gate, again without a killer app, and did nothing to remedy the situation to make sure that its head-mounted display would have a killer app. You know, I don't want to say I completely regret buying PlayStation VR, but I kind of do at this point, because it really does just kind of sit there now. Like, the first 3 weeks, I played the living crap out of it. I played Robinson until I was barfed. And I haven't touched it since. I did purchase the other day this game called Holo Ball, which is basically just racquetball. Because what I'm starting to realize is that, like, the more complex they try to make VR games...
Where was that game, by the way?
Golem? Yeah, what the hell's up with that? I don't know. But what I've started to realize with VR is it seems like the more complicated and more like a traditional video game they try to make VR games, the less I enjoy them. Like, I feel like with the technology where it is right now, it needs to be a really simple concept. It's kind of like...
arcade games, sort of.
It's kind of like the first video game was Pong.
Right.
Like, you need to find, like, these very simple concepts that the hardware can keep up with so that nobody gets sick.
Well, that's why I said one of the most compelling things on the Vive was in the lab you have that little shooter thing where you pick up the ship and move it around and shoot it like that. And it's like you've played bullet hell shooters a million times before, but you've never played it like this. So
Right.
like you're right, they should more of these games need to go back to the source, back to the old days, back to basics. Figure out, take things that we've played since 1979, but reinvent them for VR, and you might find something that you have to reinvent the language of game, because like I think too many people, even developers, I think, are looking at this as a different display device and not a different medium. It is a different medium.
I mean, look at the Wii with motion controls.
Yeah.
What was the big hit for the Wii?
Bowling.
Bowling and Pong. I mean, Pong.
Yeah.
Tennis is Pong. And
Well, in VR, one of the most convincing games I've played on either headset is pool.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it's convincing is because I keep trying to lean on the table, it's not there, and I fall over.
I've seen people do that.
I mean, your body just accepts it, and you
Yeah.
just sort of go to lean on it, and there's nothing there. And I'm like, that is a mark of a successful experience.
And I don't blame Sony as much as I blame Oculus and Valve, because they've been around. First of all, they went through the launch. They knew they had no killer apps. And now these things have been out for almost a year, and there is still not this one game that you can point to and say, everybody needs to play that. There's not one of them yet. So VR gets my turkey.
They're all games that you're like, if you have a headset, you should play this.
Right.
But none of them are like, you have to get a headset
to play this. Exactly.
And I think,
maybe it should have been my winner instead of runner-up.
I do think, I think with the Vive and the PSVR, I feel like I have tried to make it clear this year on this show that I don't really recommend people run out and buy it yet.
Yeah.
I enjoy it and I have it and I did it, but if you don't have ridiculous amounts of disposable income and or a tax write-off coming, I don't think it's a smart buy yet. I don't think it's proven itself quite yet.
Honestly, I regret a little bit how enthusiastic I was after I first got PlayStation VR. Mm-hmm. And I hope I didn't convince somebody to buy it and now they're pissed off at me. If I did, I'm sorry.
I don't think you were spend $400 on this.
No, I mean, I wasn't over the moon about it.
No, but even your enthusiasm level, I don't think would have convinced me if I was a skeptic that I should turn around and throw $400 at the thing.
And I mean, look, even if you are discouraged with it right now, and you're like, oh man, I spent all this money on this, I'm not getting much use out of it. I think it'll.
Ace Combat is coming.
No, Resident Evil 7 is coming. I think that game's going to freak people out.
One way or the other, you're going to be able to blow up shit in a jet or kill hillbillies in a shack. So, and that's what we really want out of our video games.
Yep. All right. What's your winner? What's your Turkey Award for 2016, Matt?
My Turkey Award for 2016 goes to Lazy Remasters.
Hey, that's an easy target.
Which I guess it's like, as someone who likes the idea of carrying forward these games through history, so we don't lose them, especially PS3 stuff, which is never going to be properly emulated. And I'm mainly looking at Batman, the Arkham Collection, and the Ezio Collection from the Assassin's Creed stuff that came out, which all had basically in places these games look worse than the originals, or run worse in places. And we had the Polygon had their weird face thing on the Xbox One version of the Ezio thing. Batman was basically just dumped into Unreal 4 without any attention paid to preserving the effects and the shaders and the color timing. It's just,
that's the thing I've noticed about both these games. Nothing really looks different except for the colors.
Yeah.
And in some cases, the remasters look more washed out than the older ones.
Yep, absolutely.
It's really mind-boggling.
And it's just, it's a quick and dirty, as opposed to preservation, because I'm very about, as a film fan, I'm very much about preservation and making sure these things still exist. And even, I know, an 8-year-old doesn't want to play Karateka. It's like the games don't age as well as movies anyway, but they should still be there.
Yeah.
They should still, as much as we can, we should preserve these things because so many of them have already fallen through the cracks. And I know no one's ever going to, it's not like all the copies of Arkham City are ever going to vanish before, without Civilization vanishing first.
Well, the things to play them on.
The things to play them on. Eventually all the 360s and all, eventually,
yeah, they're all going to break.
I mean, PCs, I guess, will be able to handle them, but it would be nice to have these things, be reliable. If I realize not everybody can be Blue Point, which I think they make the best remasters. They're very conscientious people. in terms of, and that's why Sony gets them to do all of their remasters, because they always do a good job.
Yeah.
But like, I just wish the people who make these remasters, or the people who fund the people who, because it's probably more of they're not paying these people, giving these people enough of a budget to make the remasters what they need to be.
I think it's more about time.
Yeah.
I think they're just not giving them the time to make them good enough.
But again, it's like, it's the triangle. You can, good, cheap, or fast.
Right.
Pick two. And I think they're doing them cheap and fast, and we're not getting good.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you see a great remaster, like the God of War collection, or like some of those are amazing. Like that's great that those can be brought forward like that.
But they're the exception, not
the rule. They
are
are the exception, but I think they should be the rule.
No, I agree. 1,000%.
And there's no real reason not, especially if you have respect for your own damn content.
Yep.
Make sure these things are vetted. Make sure that,
they don't, though.
Of course
I feel
they
like
don't.
a lot of these publishers just look at video games as just like disposable media that's here one day.
Somewhat, but even
next.
Ubisoft makes all these grand pronouncements about how things ought to be, capital OTB, and like then they put out this Ezio thing that is just like, it looks ridiculous. Like,
it does.
It's and like even to the point that like, upgrading the visuals doesn't matter if like all of a sudden you can totally tell that all the backgrounds are 2D planes. Like in all the cutscenes in Assassin's Creed 2 and the remaster, it's just you can tell those buildings are just cardboard standees basically.
Yeah.
And it's just like, have some pride in that.
It's like
shit.
a set for a high school play.
Yeah, it is. And like and part of it is the jump to HD. The HD era is like it's like the jump to HD in film and television. It's like all of a sudden you can see everybody's makeup. Like you had to kind of reinvent how you present these things, and it's a shame. And in the meantime, there's a user mod on PC for Assassin's Creed 1 that brings all the textures and stuff up to the quality of something from like Unity or Syndicate, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like if
well, how did one person do this?
Right. Because they care.
It's the Skyrim remaster. It's lazy.
Yeah. But what makes the Skyrim remaster worth it? The mods.
Right.
And Bethesda knew that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because they enable, Sony gave them a problem on that. But still, like, if you're playing that on Xbox One, you're getting a really good experience. And it's not really because of what came in the box, it's because of what people are doing with it.
I mean, even if you played it before when it came out for 100 hours, there's more reason to play it now.
Right. Like, what's one of the most exciting things that happened this week? Not yet, but it will be. Saints Row 4 getting opened up for mods.
It's huge. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That toy
what
box.
What is that going to look like?
Can't imagine.
Like,
It's gonna
that's
be
the
crazy.
exciting stuff. So, I love the idea of remasters. I will buy remasters of my favorite titles. If you put out a PS4 remaster of Shadow of the Colossus, I'll buy that too. I'll just keep going through the generations. But not if they keep. Sony's been very good about it, but not if they keep doing this thing where they think they can just shove these things on a disc with like a slight visual upgrade that runs worse in some cases than the original and throw it out there. I don't think that's okay.
Yeah.
And one of the most frustrating things for me this year has been seeing these games come out, and like sometimes I'll have them on PC. Like the Batman games I have on PC, and I think those are just as good, if not better, than the remaster versions. But like I got friends that never played those, and I'd love to be able to get them that for Christmas, or recommend that like, go pick that up and play Arkham City. It's amazing, but I can't tell them that because I think it's an inferior experience, and that shouldn't be something we have to worry about.
Nope, you're absolutely right. All right, it's time for me to announce my winner of my 2016 Turkey Award, and it is Hello Games.
Not No Man's Sky, Hello Game.
Well, no, you're right. It's Hello Games. I'm glad you brought that up because it's not No Man's Sky. Because, look, I realize he said some things in some interviews here and there that ultimately haven't happened yet. Although today they announced base building's coming. But my issue is with Hello Games because of how they have handled this entire situation.
Also, what does it call the update? The Foundation update.
Right.
FU. I see what you did there.
Yeah. Well, it's like, no, that's almost like an oxymoron. The Foundation update, the Foundation should have been there from the frickin' beginning. You don't get the foundation. Like, when you build a house, you start with the foundation. You don't build the foundation later. Like
they're updating the Foundation.
Yeah.
What?
So, look, I don't have a problem with No Man's Sky. I don't think it's an amazing game. I had some fun with it. I think, for a lot of people, it was a disappointing game. Maybe he said a couple things here and there that he shouldn't have, or maybe he hinted at some stuff that never made it into the game. But I think most developers are guilty of that.
Right.
But
that happens a
the
lot.
bottom line is, how they handled it after the crap hit the fan was pretty much the worst possible way. He acted like someone who has never seen the internet before, has never talked to a gamer before, has never been on Twitter before, has never been on any social media platform before. You can't just turtle and run away from this. You can't take what amounts to ultimately like $100 million and just run. You can't do that in the modern age. And this is a contract that you sign with the universe when you decide to make pop culture content of any kind. Us sitting here right now, streaming on Twitch, archiving a show on Sifted, when you do that and you make that contract with yourself and with others, you know that you're going to have to answer to the people that you are speaking to. And he knew this. He knew that you can't just release a game. You can't go on like late night talk shows and be the belle of the ball at E3 press conferences and go hobnob with celebrities and then deliver a product that disappoints tons of people and just go AWOL. You can't do it.
But he did it.
He did do it. But look at what happened. You think people are going to buy their games now? Some will. The people who like No Man's Sky will, but the people who feel burned by No Man's Sky, they're never going to buy another one of his products. And if he had just stood up and said, shit, all this stuff was supposed to be in here, I don't want to go into the boring details, but the bottom line is, we were over, but, just tell people what happened. People are shockingly understanding. Even the stuff that happened with Pac, when all the Nintendo people freaked out when he made that little comment about Iwata. This week's episode goes up on YouTube where he apologizes. And everybody's like, apology accepted. Totally cool. You're cool with me now, Pac. Literally?
Yeah, but they didn't pay $60 to hear him say that thing about Iwata.
What do you mean?
I mean that Pactor didn't cost anybody any money.
Right, but I'm just saying people in general are forgiving by nature. People don't want to hold grudges. People want to remain friends with or in close ally with something that resonated with them before. They want to find a reason to go back. And for him to just, not just him, I don't want to just single him out because Hello Games is a whole team.
Yeah, but I don't think the rest of the team has a decision to make.
You're probably right, but I'm just trying to.
It's his company.
I'm trying to provide the benefit of the doubt here. For him and the team to just disappear off the face of the earth for months and just ignore everything that's going on around. It's like the child who, when they're getting scolded, they put their fingers in their ears and go, nah, 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 nah. So it's dude, you can't do that. You're an adult.
Well, except he apparently didn't do that. They're making an update for it. So I don't think there was a winning move here.
There was a winning move. You addressed the problems with
I don't agree with that.
Look, Matt, let me do my turkey award, damn it. You can't, I let you have yours. Now I have mine. This is my platform to talk about what pissed me off this year. And this pissed me off. He is wrong. It's absolutely wrong for you to take all. It's imagine Sifted launches and all these people subscribe, and the site isn't anything like what I told people it was going to be. And then people are all pissed off, and they're and I just disappear, and you never see me again. Dude, that's not okay. That's not okay for anyone to do in any industry, particularly an industry, like I said, where you sign that contract beforehand, knowing that when you put that piece of media out there, you're going to have to answer for it. And to just run away and hide like a kid, it's wrong. It's so messed up, and I don't even care about the game. The game to me is irrelevant.
What do you think he was thinking?
He was scared. He didn't want to deal with it. It's avoidance. He was running away. And you were going to say, oh, well, they went and worked on the game? That's sure. They didn't have 5 minutes to type up something and put it out?
I think that's, I don't remember who it was from Sony who made that comment about that, where it's just they made some bad PR choices and they probably could use someone who's a professional at that.
Shohei.
Was that Shohei that said that? Yeah. Probably true. Maybe the 16th member of the team should be a PR person.
But he knew it, man. He knew running away was the last thing he should do. He found out he thought that was the easiest way out, the path of least resistance. He's I'll go away. All the anger will die down, and then I'll come back, and everything will be okay.
Well, that clearly was wrong.
Right.
Because just the announcement... Well, I mean, sort of also when they did that thing that happened a couple weeks ago where all of a sudden they got hacked,
Right.
or what? Or there was or first they said it was a disgruntled employee who got a hold of the Twitter account, and then they
Right.
said they got hacked.
Right.
Which we'll probably never know the story.
Well, I
behind
think
that.
we do know.
I think it sounds like maybe
it was a bunch of garbage.
yeah. Well, I think it sounds like maybe the first one might have been more true than the second story. This one, I suspect he was thinking like, oh, well, we'll just like, when the next time we say anything, we'll have the update ready to go and everything will be awesome, because otherwise if we just say I think they thought like if we say we're sorry or whatever and we don't have anything to show for it to fix it, people just say we're all talk and we're blowing
Saying
hot
you're
air.
sorry goes a long frickin' way, man. You may not think, because the problem
Somewhat.
is on the internet, there's so many people that are just jerks, but they are really the minority. There are thousands of people there who are willing to accept your apology as long as they feel like it's heartfelt. And
I think so, but
now
like,
it's too late. Like, he's not sorry. People know he's not sorry, because you don't run away for months at a time and then come back and be like, oh, I'm sorry. No, you're only sorry because people are pissed off at you. You aren't really sorry for what you did. Like, that's the way people look at it.
It's kind of directly proportional how many death threats you're getting in a day. Like my curiosity on this is like, the hatred for this has lasted so long.
It's ridiculous.
And
like, look, as far as like people being pissed off at him over the game, like they're insane. Like, I don't know how a game that isn't a sequel has built up a crazy fanboy base like that game did. Like, literally, like, he got them hook, line, and sinker, and maybe that's the problem. They just fell too hard for it, but you should never act this way over a game not being as good as you thought it was going to be, or over a feature or two not making it into the final game.
I think part of
the features people are complaining about would not fundamentally make the game that much better than it is.
Well, the only thing, and that's the frustrating thing about it, both in terms of someone who hates it and someone who likes it, I think, is that really most of what he said is technically in there, but a lot of it's half-baked. Right. A lot of it is only on a very, it's like, he said you can grief other players. But everyone's like, well, there's no multiplayer, so how can that possibly... Because, I griefed a guy by, like, finding a planet he'd named. He didn't name the other planets in the system, so every other planet in the system I named was an insult to him.
Right.
So if he ever looks at that system again, he's going to see all that. So technically, and, like, when you see him answer this question, he's like, yeah, you can grief people. So he's thinking of something like that, but people are not, and reasonably, are not taking him saying that as that kind of meta thing. They're taking it as like, yeah, you're going to be able to see another person. And the only thing that really shocked me about this game was that the multiplayer wasn't in it at all.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that the code wasn't working. It wasn't that something wasn't there properly. It wasn't that, some
the
code
problem was the
but it wasn't
dishonesty.
there.
He never told people. It's like,
will he ever?
When those two people on the stream went to the same place, and they're like, you're not there.
And he's like, amazing. Two people found each other and never addressed it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
do you think
about.
He'll ever
like, you
do
can't
that, though?
go. Yeah, someday he will. Someday he'll definitely come clean about all of it. He'll get old and he'll realize how stupid he was right now. Like
an 80-year-old Sean Murray in like 2055.
Or whatever.
Like
like, even
clean.
when he gets to like
amazing.
50 or 60 and he's like, screw it. Like, yeah, like I totally screwed up. I never should have ran away. I don't know. To me, this was like one of the most obvious turkey awards I've ever given out in all my years of doing it.
Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen with when the new update comes out and whatever. If people give it another chance, because people are talking about how low the player base is, right? I'm like, look, man, I played that game for 150 hours and I haven't played it since September. So it's like, even people who loved it are not playing it anymore, because what are you going to do at that point? I've seen how many red and green planets can I look at, right?
Right.
So we don't know if people are going to give it another chance, come back to it or whatever. I saw some people saying like, yeah, I didn't buy it, but I'll buy it for $20 to try this new update or whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't know how many people those are. Maybe there's a couple dozen of them. I don't know. Like, what if you're Sean Murray, maybe taken aside from whatever silence versus not, or whatever, or if you're Hello Games, what do you do now? Do you try to make another game, or do you dissolve and to the winds and just say this didn't work?
Oh, I would definitely make another game. Because no matter what, when you debut that game, so many people are going to watch that trailer, man.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I mean, you cannot pay
for that kind of
publicity and interest. Like, you go for it, but you have to fix it.
You got to actually deliver this.
You got to deliver what you say, and you got to be careful about what you say. Like, you can't talk about like an indie game that's being built by like 10 or 11 people that's 2 years away and say, yeah, this crazy feature is going to be in the game. Like, you just can't do that. Like, you need to understand your team's capabilities and that projects are huge. And at the end of the day, when it's coming to release time, you got to start chopping stuff. And, like, you just don't know what you're going to chop.
The only other thing you've made is 2 Joe Danger games.
Right. And that's all he had to say was, like, look, like, we'd only made a couple of Joe Danger games. And, like, we wanted to give you guys all this, and we couldn't do it.
Right.
Like,
and it's
honesty.
I think it's like I said at the time. I'm like, if I'd played this and you told me this was an alpha of No Man's Sky that was like a year out from release, I'd be like, this is really good. Like,
no,
really
this is going to be
super
great.
positive.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of work to do, but like the bones are here.
Yeah.
And all we got was we got even as someone who enjoyed the base gameplay, the loop, press whatever that dopamine button was, right? All we got was a skeleton.
Yeah.
And there is the possibility of building some meat on this thing, and 2 years out, maybe it could be like a good game. But like,
if he had done what I said,
he might have burned all that already.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he just come out and been like, "Oh crap, man, this has turned into a disaster." Like, thank you guys for buying it. First of all, thank you so freaking much for buying this. We know it fell short. Please stick with us because this game isn't done. Like, we wanted to get it to where it's supposed to be. But now he's burned those bridges. People won't even come back now. They'll just be like,
And one of the the people that already got their refunds won't come back. I think there's a substantial audience that will give it another shot.
Yeah, I mean, I will.
Will it cause it? Will that?
But I didn't hate the game.
Right,
like,
but will that translate into like new sales?
Probably not.
Probably not. I
but
mean,
at this point,
placating it's cheap, but like
all the millions of people that bought your game is good enough.
Right.
You don't need new sales. Like, you've made your money.
And the worst part is...
make your customers happy now.
I think the worst part about the long silence was that, like, you could kind of understand it in, like, a corporate situation where, like, the developer of a game they made for a major publisher was, like, they just can't talk. You can't talk. The publisher handles that. Hello Games is not restricted by anything like that. The buck stops and begins with Sean Murray on this.
I hate to say this, but it was cowardice. It was cowardice. He was a coward. He was afraid. He went and turtled and went away.
I can't really blame someone for turtling from the full force fury of the internet when that game came out and it failed. But
I don't know. I've had the internet after me many times.
I don't think you've had the internet after you the way Sean Murray had the internet after him.
No, not at that force, but it's been pretty intense.
Like the death threats against the families and the people taking pictures of their offices and shit like that. I mean, that's crazy.
I've had stuff like that happen. I've had people go after like my relatives on social media. Like, the question you ask yourself is 100 people acting crazy better than 500 people acting crazy? You have one person acting crazy, that's scary as shit.
Yeah,
dude.
but
I never ran.
But I think the high profile level of this is on a different level than anything you and I have ever dealt with, and especially directly because we've never dealt with stuff on that like that in the social media world where they have much more direct access to you, and
I have dealt with it on social media. For sure.
But like on the level of what Sean Murray just went through on that, like
like I said, is there a difference between 100 people being a maniac towards you or 500? Because after a while, you just tune it all out, and you put your statement out, and you say, "This is what I believe. This is what happened," and that's it.
Well,
he never did that.
You can.
Anybody can.
Sean Murray might be a delicate flower. We don't know.
Well, whatever.
But what I'm saying
either he's a coward or he's weak.
But what I'm saying
one or the other. Pick your poison.
I think, you're throwing a lot of victims under a bus on that in the social media realm, then. I don't agree with that at all.
Why?
Because not everyone who has to shut down from social media when they're a victim of targeted attacks like that is a coward. And
I guess that's a matter of perspective.
This particular situation, yeah, you got a point. But, like, sometimes, because he's got a responsibility as the head of that company.
Right.
To stand up and do it. And I understand running silent.
I'm not talking about girls getting like harassed by creepy dudes on social media.
About,
I'm talking about prominent people who work at companies who have to answer for poor work or poor decisions they made. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just anybody on social media.
But I think even no matter who you are, the first time that happens, you're going to get taken aback. And I understand. The first time, though. But I understand.
He lived in this ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm going to try for the fourth time to finish my sentence. I can see being taken aback and running silent for a while, but like while you try to desperately get these patches out, but the last patch was September 9th. Maybe around October 9th, you could have had a sit down with Keighley or something to kind of tell your side of the story.
You could have just wrote.
And I know Jeff
3
tried to do
paragraphs.
that.
Yeah.
Like, there's many avenues.
million things he
There's
could have
many
done.
safe avenues for him to have taken after some of the heat blew over, and before they've got this major patch ready. That he could have been like, okay, let's sort of start talking about clear the air.
It's been months.
It was 2 months.
Yeah. it's-
Over 2.5 months since the last. Not even him. He stopped tweeting on like August 9th or something.
Yeah.
But the last communication from Hello Games, other than the No Man's Sky was a mistake tweet,
Yeah.
was September 8th. September 8th or 9th, the last update.
Not good enough. That's my turkey.
Has that ever happened before in the modern era?
No.
That kind of like pure silence
No.
on that kind of thing?
That's why it's insane. It's crazy.
Because it's funny that like I can think of a couple games I played that I felt were more misrepresented.
Oh, yeah.
But, like-
lots more.
But this fueled that fire.
That's what I'm
level.
trying to say. The way he dealt with it just made it worse. It's like he just threw gasoline onto it. Like,
And did he
gobble, gobble.
And did he not know? Like, I have so many questions. I'd love to meet the guy in a bar.
We'll find out someday.
I don't mean to say that.
Hopefully
I mean,
we'll
that
be
sounds
alive
like
still.
that sounds like I want to take him out back. That's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to beat him up in a pub. I'd love to just know. It's like somewhere around like I don't know October.
Yeah.
You didn't think that maybe I should
Say something.
tweet something? It's like, hey, how's everyone doing?
It was already too late by then as
I guess
well.
so.
Like, he needed to address it like right away when the storm blew up, and he didn't. So, gobble, gobble.
I'm pretty shocked that I know a lot of people that had some money riding on the idea of whether they'd ever update again, and I'm a little shocked that the people that bet against them updating are going to lose their money.
Really? I knew they would.
I didn't bet against them. I didn't bet anything, actually.
Yeah.
But when October came and went, I kind of felt like it might be over.
I didn't think so.
No.
I knew they had to. They had to update it. It's too broken to not update it again.
Well, unless, like, you're right that whatever they do next is going to be automatically like scrutinized. But if they just decided to all kind of like the conspiracy goes, like we're going to split the difference, we're all going to go to our separate Caribbean islands,
Yeah.
and that's going to be, I could see that just sort
they
of
made enough money off
disappearing.
No Man's Sky to do it. That's the funny part. They're laughing all the way to the bank. All right, it's time to move on to the last topic, which isn't really a topic. Just want to talk to you guys about a couple changes coming to the site. First of all, by now, I'm hoping that you guys have all seen that the t-shirts are now on sale on the website. Some of you guys asked to see them being worn, so that's why I made sure to wear one on the show tonight. I know Sam hates when we wear t-shirts because the mic always like rubs against it and you get mic hits. So anytime you hear that boom, boom, boom on the show, that's usually the mic hitting a t-shirt. But I wanted to rock one out today so you guys could see it. 5 different designs. I think they're all cool. I think they're all different. There should be something there for all of you guys. Please go buy them. This is something that you guys asked for. You wanted shirts. You wanted merch. We put out a ton of money to get the shirts printed up. It would really, really suck if people didn't buy them up. So, you guys have donated a lot of money to Sifted. This is your chance to actually, for us to give you something back for your money. It would make us feel really good. And it would certainly help us financially as well. So please, please, please go buy a shirt. We ship anywhere. I will admit, the prices for shipping overseas are high. They are the cheapest we could find to ship shirts overseas. I promise you.
Screwing at one sifter in Guam.
Yeah. It's been crazy, some of the addresses we've got to ship to. I've been really impressed by how international the Sifted audience is, and I kind of knew that already. But
What percentage of Sifted subscribers are like European?
like 30%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not bad.
that's pretty high.
Especially consider what time they have to be up for this.
Yeah. Thank you to those of you who have bought the shirts already. We already have a ton of orders. We started boxing them up and getting them ready to ship yesterday. I worked pretty much all day on Thanksgiving, and I'm working on Black Friday too. So thank you to those of you who bought the shirts already. Really appreciate it. We need to sell a lot more. My wife will thank you when all those boxes are out of our back bedroom. But yeah, for those of you who bought them, the shirts we're getting packaged up, and they'll probably be shipped out on Monday. So those of you who live in the U.S., you should get it a day or two after. Those of you who are in Europe, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but we'll be sending those out. So head to the store, buy some shirts. One person bought all of them, bought all 5.
One of each?
One of each, yeah, in his size. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. if you guys have been on the site today, then you know the Save for Later feature was just added today. And it is really, really cool. I know you hear about it now. You're like, oh, I read everything. And you don't. Like, there's a lot of things that you see and you don't realize subliminally that your brain says to you, don't have time for that, and you move on. Well, now you don't have to worry about it. If you find something on the site that you really like and you don't have time to check it out, maybe it's a huge feature, or maybe it's a Let's Play that's like an hour long, you don't have time to sit and watch the whole Let's Play, there's a little flag underneath each blog entry now. If you click on that, it will add it to your Watch Later list. And then you can either go to the new hamburger menu, which is like that menu with the 3 lines, and you can click on that, and you can go to the bookmarks tab there, or you can hover over your avatar, and there's a link right there for your bookmarks as well. And that'll take you to the list of all the stuff that you save for later. If you want to delete something from the list, you have to click the X. Just clicking on the link, kind of like with our notifications, if you click on a notification, you come back, it's gone. Save for Later does not work that way. You can click on it and come back, it'll still be there. It's also really handy for reference stuff. So, for instance, I use this on the site today. Like, for the first time ever, we got like the Wii U and Nintendo 3DS first-party sales numbers. Like, Nintendo put them out like a month ago, and I was like, holy crap! Like, you'd always had to kind of figure it out with math and like the MPD numbers they gave you and whatnot. Well, Nintendo like gave them away finally with specific numbers of how each one sold. And I was like, oh, I want to keep this for forever to use for reference when I have a question about something. That's also the type of thing that you can use for Save It for Later, and just leave it there forever if you want to go back and reference it. So it seems like a very simple feature at first, but really when you start thinking about it and how you can use it, there's a lot of depth there. Big thanks to Brent Phillips, who, as always, he built the feature. Didn't even tell me he was doing it. Just texted me today, and he's like, hey, this is live. And I was like, I'm getting ready for the show. I got to get promotion for that done. Got all that up, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the feature, and you'll use it in the future. Just another layer of the onion on Sifted. Seems to just get thicker.
Layer of the onion in the hamburger menu.
In the hamburger menu. That's a good point. And the last thing I want to bring up before we go to our trailer of the week is we are going to slowly migrate over to using YouTube's player. And it is for a number of reasons. One of the big reasons is cost. Our bandwidth bills have just continued to go through the roof. And we honestly just cannot afford to keep serving GameFaces 3 hours long a week. That's really what's happened. Is this show has gotten longer and longer, our bandwidth bills have gotten higher and higher, and we just have not had the revenue to offset it. And so we're just getting to a place where we need to look a little more intelligently at our resources, and so we are going to start phasing in the YouTube player. So that's the first reason, just base level financially, it makes more sense for us. Second reason is their player's way better than ours. Like, our player only goes up to 1080p. Their player goes up to like 8K, I think it does, like at its highest setting. And so as games start to evolve, the PlayStation 4 Pro just came out. We're going to start looking at doing content in higher resolutions. We've actually been shooting Factor in 4K ever since we got our new cameras. I don't know if you want to see Factor in 4K.
Yeah, I was going to say. I'm gonna wait. I'll wait to bust that out on another one. The next one he wears shorts in.
Yeah. But so just so you know, the videos are not just going to go up on our YouTube channel so anyone can watch them. We're just using their player, and the videos will be set to private. So only people who are subscribers to Sifted will actually have a link to the video. So it's not like we're just giving away our premium content or anything like that. So yeah, that's what's going to be going on down. Feel free to leave comments in below the video here. This will probably be the last episode of GameFace that goes on to Sifted's player. So the other part of it too is that we've been compressing the hell out of the video to try to save money on Sifted. The video quality that people are going to get on YouTube is going to be way better. I know we got that comment when we first launched Sifted. They're like, hey, why did GameFace look better on YouTube? Well, it's because there are no limits on YouTube. You can feed it as big a file as you want, and they send it through their compression. With us, like everything you do, you're thinking about, okay, you do the math of, well, we do this many hours of HD content per month, and then how much does it cost for us to serve it, and what if we tweak this setting in our rendering, and what if we change our compression routine? With YouTube, that all goes away. And be able to add like timestamps to our content. Like right now, we're just typing them into like the comments. Like we'll actually be able to give you stamps that'll send you directly to. It's just so much better in so many ways. Brent has been trying to get me to do this for a long time, and I kept saying no. And I just finally realized there's no good reason for us to not to do it. So we are moving to a YouTube player in the very near future. And I think ultimately you guys will be very happy over it. So I think that's it. We do have our trailer of the week this week, and it's one of the best ones we've had in months. This is a fan-made CG sequence based on Majora's Mask by YouTube channel Ember Lab.
Which will not be nominated next year at the Game Awards.
You're absolutely right. It's called Majora's Mask Terrible Fate. Seriously, one of the best pieces of video game media I have seen in a long, long time. Check it out and get those questions in.
Here, at the end of things, I can still feel its power. When I found it, I could sense the doom of a dark omen brewing. And now, that imp has it. Captain's warning. Nothing can withstand its power.
Holy cow, man. That's just insane. Like, for somebody to do that for free and just put it on YouTube, like, wow. I know it's easier to do that kind of stuff now, but it's not that easy.
It still takes talent.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time.
Definitely. That's some impressive stuff right there. Let's get to questions. We're, like, way over time already. We talked a long time about Final Fantasy, but I think it was worth it because I think we may have saved some of you guys from purchasing the game on Tuesday. We'll see. Let's see. From Swanson. What's up, Swanson? What was your favorite dish from your Thanksgiving feast?
We just had pot roast. We didn't do much.
I didn't even have Thanksgiving dinner. My wife went home. I stayed here because I had to work. I literally spent Thanksgiving Day all day by myself. And then last night I made like orange chicken from Trader Joe's. And then I had these mini pumpkin pies in the freezer that I defrosted, and I ate one while it was still cold. There's my Thanksgiving feast. I watched a couple football games. I watched one football game, watched the Steelers game, and watched parts of the others, but that was pretty much it. Let's see. Best Jeppy, have you voted on any Steam awards? If so, what was one of your choices? I have not.
I have not either. But I will probably join in the masses saying, doing the write-in for a game that deserves a sequel, Half-Life 2. Because it's not going to do anything, but every once in a while it's just nice to let Valve know that we're still pissed.
Fengado, not a question, just want to say you guys are always a great watch. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. We don't get very many compliments in the stream.
Not in the stream, we get in the comments.
Yeah, on the archive on the site we do, but very rarely in the live stream. So thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it.
No, the stream's like a family. It's like, you don't have to say it to each other.
Yeah. At the end, everyone says great show, which is awesome.
Like, if you're sitting here for 3 hours watching us babble on, I assume you think we're okay. Yeah.
Dicky Doo 15. Shane, would you ever go on Giant Bomb or Kind of Funny shows to talk about Sifted? Hell yeah, I would. Of course I would. They don't invite me. Nobody invites me to do anything. I feel like everyone in this industry hates me. I don't know what it is. People act like Sifted doesn't exist. They don't invite me on any of their shows. Like Matt, I saw the one guy was like, "Hey, does anyone play Call of Duty? I need someone on a show stat." And you were like,
hit you up.
Shane, I have been on that guy's podcast like 2 years ago with Garnet. He never even texted me. I don't know what it is, man. I don't get it. No one seems to want to support Sifted. It's frustrating. It is what it is. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. Crying doesn't do any good. Just makes things worse. W. Matthew, given the softness of retail sales and the 60% spike for NVIDIA's year over year, is it likely that game sales aren't dropping but moving?
Yeah, I think you said something along those lines of people are waiting for sales. People know they don't have to pay full price anymore if they're patient.
I think what Matthew's getting at is that maybe people are just buying more games on PC now, and it's all digital where it's not really tracked. So, yeah, it's very possible. But on the flip side of that, sales of processors and PC parts are way down.
Yeah.
But that could be a factor of, it doesn't mean less enthusiasts are buying them. It just means our moms aren't buying desktops anymore, which is true.
It is.
They're just not. They all use
and
their
also
phones
remember,
or iPads.
it makes sense for graphics cards to be a little bit over the rest of hardware because that's the main thing. Very few games are CPU intensive these days. It's all run through the GPU, so it's much easier to just upgrade that until you really hit a wall with your CPU.
Yeah. Mnemic, another frequent watcher of the live stream. Matt mentioned Sucker Punch earlier in the show. If you were responsible for assigning their next game, what would you have them make and why?
Oh.
Rocket Robot on Wheels 2. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Good for me, not for anybody else.
I wouldn't mind a remaster of that one.
Yeah.
Highly underrated platformer. I brought my copy of that with me when I went up there for an interview once, and had
the red cartridge.
The red cartridge. I had a couple of them sign it, and they were also like, "Can't believe anyone owns this."
I wonder if that game's worth money now.
No.
They made enough of them that it's not.
Yeah, also, no one knows what it is. No one cares. But like,
those are usually the games though that end up being worth money.
Yeah, but you also have to be discovered as a gem, and no one even bothered to do that with
Right.
Rocket Robot on Wheels. There's a small group of people that know the glory of Rocket Robot on Wheels, and there's not many of us.
There are two of them.
Two.
50% of them are sitting right here.
Infamy, party of two. Your table's ready.
This is a tough question because it's like, do you
yeah.
just come up with something, or is he asking like a game that some other publisher makes that you would want them to take on?
I mean, obviously, I will always take more Sly Cooper, but like, in terms of like something I'd like to see them tackle, like I mean, I don't know if it's up their alley, but I'd love to see what they could do with like an open world action RPG kind of thing, but like without a template, like without make a fantasy. No, just like go crazy, like do whatever the hell you want, like maybe even like an open world action RPG set in like the Sly Cooper universe.
That'd
like
be crazy.
Something that sort of
that's definitely going crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could work for any video, this is from Rewind Playlabs. If you could work for any video game company, what company would you want to work for?
Insomniac.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. It's like I don't even have to think about that.
Yeah, one, Ted's amazing. 2, it gets like best place to work in the world like every year. 3, we wouldn't have to relocate.
Right. And 4, I have never met anyone from Insomniac who didn't have tremendous like satisfaction and pride in their work there.
Yep, they
Like,
love working
love
there.
it.
They're all cool and fun to hang out with.
And they make really good games.
I did have one tiff with Insomniac many moons ago, but it was sorted out very quickly and we're all good now. But that was the only time I ever saw any bite from that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, they thought I had slighted one of their games on Invisible Walls, and it was really weird. I was like, I couldn't even believe that they watched it. Like, I went to a meeting in a hotel room, and I went to go in, and like, their one person like pulls me out, and it's like, we need to talk, and I'm like, what?
Those are the weird. Like, getting cornered by game developers is one of the
It's
those
so
things. One of the
weird.
weirdest things.
I remember the first thing I said to him was, "You watch Invisible Walls."
Yeah. Well, that's always I remember that happened with a developer from.
Don't you have better things to do?
No,
They don't.
I remember Cecily and I got cornered by a guy who worked on Bloodwake.
Oh God.
Remember that game?
There's nothing worse than trying to get harassed by developers who make really bad games.
Well, also, but like, of course, he was upset because he didn't like the review segment. And Admin was like, "Wow, you watch?" You know, like, it was that same reaction. Like, you watch the show? Like, that's crazy. It was like when Adam found out he was at some charity party thing, and he found out that Steven Spielberg watched Feedback. And like he's like, "Yeah, Steven said thanks for the kind words about Boom Blocks." And so it's like, "Steven who?" He's like, "Steven Spielberg." He's like,
What?
And I'm like, "Dude, you can't tell me that Steven Spielberg watches this damn show now. I'm never gonna." Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. Let's see, a couple more. Case Money. Safe to say Nintendo is the #1 developer ever. Who would you say is number 2?
#1 developer ever. I mean, it's hard to say because, like, if you want to lump all these different development teams into Nintendo, sure.
I think it's easy, Blizzard.
But, like, yeah, Blizzard is probably...
I think it's the only other company that can really compare to Nintendo, honestly.
Yeah. If Valve had continued making games, maybe they might.
But even it started too late. I mean, you look at Blizzard, like where
Blizzard goes back to '92 or whatever.
Yeah, that's my answer anyway.
Dinky Do 15 asks, "Is it bad that I wait for games to go on sale? Am I hurting the game industry?" I would say it's not your job to make sure the game industry.
Yeah, it's really
survives. I mean, you're not pirating stuff. Just like you're paying a fair retail price.
Honestly, you're just being smart.
Yeah, like. You gotta watch out for your own wallet, man. I mean, like, if you want something full price because you want it, go ahead. But like, it's not anyone's business but your own if you want to wait for a lower price on something. Never feel guilty about wanting a good deal.
Here's one from the Legacy. Is Final Fantasy 15 Japan's Destiny? That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
Yeah. And that's funny because I initially read that as like, are all Japanese games going to be this eventually? But then I realized when you read that, I'm like, oh, he's comparing it to the game Destiny.
Yeah.
I get I don't think so necessarily. Well, I don't know. As a phenomenon, maybe like Destiny's problem was that it played really well, but it lacked content. This one has tons of content, but doesn't play very well.
Right.
But you know, converse can be equivalents in some cases.
It is episode 69.
True.
It's like the yin and the yang fitting together.
Yeah. 69, dude.
Those two games could 69 each other.
Oh.
What a baby they would make.
Well, not if they're 69ing.
Dabble124, thank you very much for following me.
Sam really liked that.
Yeah. Dabble124, thank you very much for supporting me through all the years, man. I appreciate it. I see your comment there, man. Snowpiercer, which will be the better game, Last Guardian or Final Fantasy 15?
I have to guess Last Guardian, but I'm not going to put money on that one.
I can't say anything. I have not played
Haven't played either
Final
one.
Fantasy 15 either. Yeah, I mean, I've played both of them at trade shows.
There's something specifically frustrating about Final Fantasy 15 because it falls into all the same traps that Square has been, the same mistakes Square has been making when trying to emulate Western stuff for so long, and I'm just kind of tired of seeing them stumble. Last Guardian, at least, is probably going to be terrible in a whole new way. They've never made a bad game before, so it'll be interesting. Maybe their bad game will be an interesting journey. But I hope it's at least mediocre. That's my hope.
Let's see. We'll answer one more. Oh, there's tons in here. Sorry, guys. We can only get to one more.
Dinky Do 15 asks if there's any cool stories about Cessler Klepek. I think the coolest thing I've ever seen Klepek do was when he broke the story about Infinity Ward. When that whole thing blew up, and he was the one to break that story on G4, and we were there real late, and he was like calling people on. I mean, it was like it was almost like being in a newsroom in the old days. You know, it was like he was on the phone with sources, and we were like, there was like a board with like, you know, what was happening and who said what, or what he could use as actually, you know, that was confirmed by more than one person. And I mean, I was watching. You know, you got to sit there and watch him do journalism, as it was meant to be done. And, you know, in a way that we don't get the opportunity to in this industry much, because most press is just sort of a PR outlet. But he was out there breaking a story and doing journalism, and I wasn't part of that story because I was just there because we were there late editing and stuff. But I got to watch him work, and that was a treat. That was one of the cooler moments of G4, I would say.
There you go. With that, show's over, kids. Hope everyone's have a great Thanksgiving. I know a lot of you guys are probably still on holiday throughout the weekend, so be safe, have fun, eat all those leftovers.
Yep.
That's one thing I don't have to worry about. No leftovers when you don't have Thanksgiving dinner. Nothing to worry about afterwards. So everyone have a great weekend. I saw a couple questions about Geif. I am shooting an episode of Geif tomorrow, so should be on the way very soon. Sorry for the delays on all that, but life happens. So everyone have an excellent weekend. Thanks to everyone who stayed up late in Europe. I see a couple of you guys in the chat. We really appreciate it. GameFace is up and out.